The price of your kenke, ball of kenke may have changed, but there's no reason not to smile to a new day. Good morning and welcome to Newsfile. I'm Samson Ladi Anyenini, and this morning the city is in intensive care. Shall old medicine in new labels help her recover, or she just had a bad physician and needs a second opinion? More mass demolitions of so-called illegal homes and settlements to follow the roundly condemned TDC1 to be investigated by Parliament. Should the social cost of our pursuit of the law and order matter at all? I should also ask a few questions about the cost of a conference and centralized national executive elections to a once wealthy but now broke and hurting NPP. We'll be right back to deal with the details of these vexed matters. Welcome back. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. This is Newsfile. We're coming to you live from Kokomlemle. This is your multi-TV, and this certainly is your Joynews channel. You can also watch us later on the ABN channel 260 in London or elsewhere in Europe. The show is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of MTN Everywhere You Go Lipton Tea, inspiration flowing from nature, and Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner. Thanks very much. Also, Erata Motors is proud to be associated with this platform, as well as Star Assurance. Now, as you may be aware, we have had to do a lot of discussions and debates this week, all week, about the fall of the cedi and the economy. Now, we know the cedi is taking a nosedive, and the question we're asking is, the central bank's desperate measures in an obvious desperate situation, are they potent and long-lasting enough, or knee-jerk and impotent? We're talking about raising taxes, VAT, fuel prices, affect transport fares. That also affects the price of your kenke, or either the size or the price. Utility tariffs are soaring, inflation, interest rates. Some government workers are owed 4-month salaries or so. The central bank has pumped in dollars, to sort of seek to cushion the system. Government contemplates dipping its hands into the stabilization oil cash to cushion the situation. Government will get into a fight with its planned freeze on wage increase. Yet, Finance Minister says the economy is resilient and an envy by some countries. We are going to do a diagnosis of the economic, okay, I wouldn't use that word, but it looks like we're in sort of economic crisis, aren't we? We'll look at all of those things, and my guest, very abled gentleman to help us discuss the issues this morning. And I'm happy to introduce Dr. Nimoy Thompson. He is an economist and obviously needs no introduction. Good morning and welcome to the show, Dr. Nimoy Thompson.
Thank you very much.
Right. You used to be on the board of the Bank of Ghana. Are you still there?
No, I was never there.
You were never there? You were appointed to be there?
Yeah, but due to potential conflict of interest, I declined it.
You declined?
I went to the National Development Planning Commission.
Right. And beside the National Development Planning, you're doing some work beyond the borders of this country?
Yes. In South Africa, Liberia, and a few other places.
You were the ILO, is that it?
UNDP.
UNDP,
yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Dr. Anthony Akoto Osei, he is MP and former Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance. He chairs the NPP's Committee on Finance. Good morning, Doc, and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
Great. We have Mahama Yarga. He is the Minister responsible for Information and Media Relations. He's an MP and a lawyer. Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm going to see how the lawyer's economics will come in handy this morning. Of course. Of course, the man who would always issue a disclaimer before he discusses the economy and yet seems to have very fantastic ideas. Even if they are street ideas, they are important and must be factored in the discussion. Abdul Malik Kweku Bako Jr. is a regular panelist. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you, my brother.
Great. All right, gentlemen, let's go straight. I want us to take a listen to the governor of the Bank of Ghana. He spoke about measures that were being taken to, check the situation. Let's listen to him.
To support the monetary policy decision, the Bank of Ghana has issued a new set of foreign exchange regulations and code of conduct to guide operations in the foreign exchange market. The code of conduct was issued earlier, I think early this year, but that one is mainly to the banks, the dealers, and so on. And the regulations were issued, I think, 2 days ago. The new measures consist of revisions to the rules of operation of foreign exchange and foreign currency accounts, restrictions on foreign currency denominated loans, repatriation of export proceeds, margin accounts for import bills, and revised operating procedures for Forex Bureau. This is to ensure transparency, streamline activity, and reduce leakages in the foreign exchange markets, address anti-money laundering issues, and promote the use of the cedi as the sole legal tender.
Dr. Wampa there, he is the governor of the central bank. Let's listen to the minister, Seth Tepe.
Enhancing, government financial management through the GIFME system. And at the moment, we are able to distinguish within the GIFME system foreign contracts from domestic contracts. And so we will be able to track these transactions, and we will know those who flout them, and appropriate sanctions, can be applied. In fact, the measures will be proactive because from the contract database that we are setting up, when an application is brought for a contract, we'll be able to scrutinize because we are now setting up systems, that enables us to monitor these things, in a much better way. Ultimately, we must increase, our exports. And so you saw that in cases where, say, the price of gold was going up, output went up, and when cocoa went up, and the price was stable, relatively stable, even at when we hit $1 million, you earn more foreign, exchange. So in the long run, it's our capacity or ability, to earn more foreign exchange that would, help resolve this situation. In the short term, you have to look at your imports and exports and what is it that is making, the imbalance.
And those were just bits of what happened within the interaction and encounters that the regulator of the central bank had with journalists, and of course that is with the entire Ghanaian population, and also with the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning, Seth Tepe. Now, what we are going to do is to start the first part of this discussion, and we will try to be brief about that and then move on to the zero in on the cedi. We're going to talk about the economy. I'm sure you have been reading also about the economy, what the TUC thinks about the economy, and so on. But I'd like to put my very first question to Dr. Nimoy Thompson. And I'm quoting Dr. Yauba, who is the Deputy Secretary General of the TUC. He says that Ghana has seen good times before. We have seen bad times before. When there is a bad time, we know. And he was saying this in reaction to Seth Tepe's, suggestion that the economy was resilient and envied by many other countries. What time is this?
By which you mean... What do you mean, what time is this?
Bad or good?
I would say these are difficult times. We are definitely going through a transition of sorts, for which we obviously are not as prepared as we should have been. We wake up one morning and we've moved from low income to lower middle income, which comes with its own challenges, such as the decline in certain inflows. The institutional prerequisites for managing that obviously have not been put in place. Meanwhile, the economy itself is growing. I suppose what Dr. Ban was talking about was the extent to which that high rate of growth, and we do know what has prompted that growth, at least the oil component of it. But even after you take out oil, the growth rate itself is pretty high, around 7% or so. The challenge is how that is supposed to trickle down to the ordinary Ghanaian. There's the belief that this has, to a large extent, been a jobless growth. The numbers are hard to come by because we don't have very good labor market statistics, but that's the general belief. And therefore, it's a challenge that for us to develop the necessary institutions. I heard him talk about the unemployment rate should go down. In theory, yes. If your economy is growing by more than 10%, certainly you should have a very low unemployment rate. The question is, what is the unemployment rate in Ghana? We tend to get it in bits and pieces. It's so low that people don't usually even refer to it. You get 3%, you get 5%. People will say, no, it's not that. As a matter of fact, as a result of that particular challenge, I remember in Liberia, for example, the unemployment rate was given as 80%. And then they went ahead and did the proper calculation, and it came down to 3%. What is happening now in the development community is we're introducing new terminologies to reflect the real conditions of developing countries so that we don't use the same terminologies as industrialized countries. For them, when they say 3%, it makes sense. In our case, it doesn't. So we've introduced a new term called vulnerable employment. So you're employed all right, but there's so much vulnerability surrounding you that it's just as good as saying you're not employed. It's like the working poor. So you may have two people who are working, one perhaps selling in the streets, and the others working from a nice and air-conditioned studio like this one. They both close and go home. One person goes to a gated community. The other person goes to share a kiosk with 3 other people. They're both, in theory, employed. Right. But the vulnerability for that person in case of indoor plumbing, sanitation, it's so low. So we are moving to it. So when and these are some of the reasons why there's this disparity between economic growth. But broadly speaking, yes, I think the economy is resilient. Another point I should make is that in general, and Tony will bear me out on this, that economies also are typically divided into two, what we call the tradables and the non-tradable sector. You could have a situation where the non-tradable sector, that means we're not really exporting the services and whatnot, is doing quite well, but the tradable sector is not doing well. And this happens to be the case in Ghana for a whole host of reasons that I'm sure we'll go into. There are situations also where the analogy is reversed. That's been the case of Japan, for example, where the tradable sector has been doing well, but the non-tradable sector has actually been in the funk for over 20 years, just stuck. So these are some of the key highlights that I want us to bear in mind, looking at it at the macro level. And in terms of the macro, I think the Minister of Finance and the Governor have done their part, and they've said that. The challenge now, and if you read the MPC's release, they do tell us about the need for medium-term measures, and they spell those out. I hope in the course of the discussion we'll be able to unpack those, because that's the next step to these administrative measures that they put in place.
Thank you indeed for how you've set the tone for this discussion. I'll be coming to Mahama Yarga very soon to ask about these. We are told that the situation, the bad economic policy choices by government have been exacerbated by pervasive corruption, cronyism, incompetence, and extreme partisanship. The chickens have now come home to roost. We'll get you to diagnose that situation for us. But Dr. Anthony Akutose, tell me, you have also tasted good and bad times in this economy. You've lived long enough in this economy and have the privilege of managing the economy to know what it means. Is this economy not resilient in these times?
Well, thank you very much. I think everybody that has spoken about the economy is right to a certain extent. The difficulty I have is that it looks like we are talking around the problems. You know, about a month ago, just barely a month ago, the MPP held a press conference in which we put out in the public domain the kinds of things that were implied through the budget. petroleum prices were going to be adjusted, water price tariffs were going to be adjusted. They had implications. January, February is a time where everybody knows that imports from October, November, December come due. So we call it seasonality. So what you do is that you program that you need a certain amount of additional Forex to come in the system in January, February. Whether this was done this year or not, I really don't know. Like, what has happened tells me it probably wasn't done. Don't forget, we are coming from a year 2012 with very huge twin deficits of fiscal and current account, with a promise to come down to 8.5% fiscal deficit in 2014. It did not happen in 2012. So that continuation of the difficulties should have told us that, look, when you get to 2014, unless, and I remember making this statement, qualification, that unless the government is going to come up with different measures from the budget to address these problems, we're likely to have difficulties. When the tariff increases came in January, petroleum increases, it does not surprise me. What we're having now, for me, is a mismatch between the fiscal and the monetary. See, the Bank of Ghana kept holding on to the monetary policy rate for a long time. Now it's jacking it up. It may help with the CD problem, but it's going to hurt business. These are tough times. I think it's about time we all sat down and address the problem. You know, the fiscal issue has something to do with not collecting enough money and not getting value for money for our expenditures. Simple. Where are they? Let me give you an example. A friend of mine just brought to my attention that a 3-bedroom house can cost 60,000 cedis. A 3-classroom block costs 200,000 cedis. Does it make sense? It doesn't. Clearly, a house has better amenities than a 3-classroom block. So why are we looking at it and not dealing with it? Everybody knows that when you go to the Tama port, there are leakages. Why are we pretending? What must we do on our borders to make sure that these leakages are plugged? These are not Einstein type of things that you do. I was with some of the revenue agencies guys last week in Florida, and I was surprised. I talked to one of them, whose name I won't mention. I said, look, you are not helping us. I said, we are praying that we'll collect more money. The prayer is for somewhere else. You know, the prayer is for somewhere else. Let us sit down and do what it takes. Who is monitoring who? These are simple measures. There are leakages that people know. They go and report. Next time you know it is gone. On the expenditure side, everybody knows that. I'll give you another example, and I won't mention the agency. Somebody got a contract for 50,000 cedis to bring some paper stuff to some agency. He got a contract for 50,000 cedis. He went to the market, purchased it for 20,000 cedis. So I'm asking, when the person was given the contract, didn't they do some market survey? So look, this is what is hurting us. And unless we get to the bottom of it, we are not going to get there. Look, I'm sorry. I think that both the governor and the minister ought to be talking some more. I mean, if you read the governor's statement and said, oh, we are doing our part, I hope the ministry does its part. No, you are together. The two cannot go in separate ways. You know, later I'm sure we'll get into the details. But look, the economy is not working well.
The graphic example you gave just a while ago, is it the sheer incompetence on the part of whoever it is that contracted this particular gentleman?
It's pure malfeasance, if you ask
Pure
me.
malfeasance?
Yes, and we just close our eyes. That 30,000 cedi margin, where is it going? So what is happening, and of course, part of the reason, and it's not the whole reason, is that, see, contractors are not being paid. So they price the long stay into their project. So we are not getting...
But that doesn't mean that tender entities or boards ought to approve these things without the proper evaluation.
I agree. So we need to also deal with that. It's a lot of sole sourcing, which is not competitive. I think these are simple measures. The minister was talking about GIFMIS. GIFMIS is a tool to track revenue, expenditures now and revenues later. But GIFMIS by itself cannot solve our problem.
Right.
The human factor is there.
I'll return to you again, but let me come to you, Abdul Malik Kwaku, at this point. I don't know. Has your I want us to get down. My grandma, who is there and has the benefit of being able to watch and hear the English, may not quite appreciate how the two gentlemen, put the issues across. Has Madame...
I thought we did our best.
You are doing very well. Has Madame come to ask for extra cash to keep the taste of her soup and the size of your TZ?
What a question. One, at the risk of personalizing or maybe domesticating thing, because it may be good at my end and may not be good at so many other ends. So one has to be very careful responding to the way, the kind of question you put and the way you put it. But I think there's a general feeling out there of despondency, of lack of optimism. It's against the backdrop of the fact that, we declared that this nation statistically had become a lower middle income economy. We began production of oil in commercial quantities in 2010. Revenue started coming on stream maybe 2011 thereabout. So I believe many Ghanaians, or a majority of Ghanaians, were anticipating that the financial muscle of this country would improve, that things would get better. I think between 2010, 2013, and I'm not saying we've never suffered such challenges before, but I'm saying that there was a rising expectation against the backdrop of the fact that we had begun to receive some oil revenue, and we'd been able to stabilize the macroeconomic elements, So suddenly, the bubble appears to have burst, and that has dampened expectations. It's leading to serious lack of confidence in the economy. I think it's more to do with the managers of the economy and the governance of the state. The two of them should take their responsibility. It's unfortunate that it's those of us who are not part of the management process who are suffering, and I mean the citizenry that are suffering. But if you go deep into it, where did that huge, and I asked this question last week, that huge fiscal deficit, that unprecedented deficit, where did it come from? And how did we come by it? There were people responsible for that. Those who were governing the nation, as well as those who were managing the economy, of course, from the monetary angle. So, to be honest with you, there's despondency. We were downgraded. Was it Fitch? From B plus to B. These things happened so progressively. There was a downward trend. It was becoming so perceptible. And yet there were people who were in self-denial, and throwing out all sorts of statistics to hide or to cover them. So to be honest with you, out there, times are rough, times are hard, times are tough. Okay? Look at what we went through, the energy, water crisis, the prices going up. There's complete despondency. And I don't know.
The price of your sachet water is moving from 10 pesos to 15
pesos. Yes. And now the feeling I get, and this is a very uneducated input I'm making, is as if we are going back to a control and command economy. It's as if we are told those laws, the regulations exist. I've checked it. The powers for the government to do what it's doing is true. Is it the Foreign Exchange Act 2006? Act 723, but it's not as if they are to be done regularly, okay? So it means that something is wrong somewhere. I think what we are being told is that there was also a certain level of abuse, of misuse of the foreign exchange system. But we presided over it for a while. We've allowed it to go on for a while, and now we are coming with this cure, which appears to be more of a command and control thing. And as people have said, it may make the alternative market, I didn't want to say black, have some muzzle. So I've come back to the quality of management of the economy. Those who have been entrusted with that responsibility and who have the technical competence, not people like us. So if you ask me for an alternative, I'll be honest with you, I do not know. I'm not educated enough on these matters to give you a precise alternative. Right. But that's why we have put people who know in particular positions to do the work. Right. But if you asked me for that common man's view, feeling. I'm telling you, out there, people are staring hardship in the face. And money, take it from me, is a coward. If you do things that frighten money, they run away.
Very interesting note there. Now, Ms. Aiga, tell me, and it may sound I'm in a hurry to pose this question, but the TEC, the biggest labor, organization, seen by many as the umbrella, the mother union of labor groups, is laying the charge squarely at the managers of the economy. Kweku has mentioned that, and they say you have ignored, or the government has ignored, good advice, economic advice from local experts, and has rather gone to the IMF and other entities. But more damaging is the suggestion that the situation has been exacerbated by pervasive corruption, cronyism, incompetence, and extreme partisanship.
Thank you very much. I think many things have been said this morning that require that we do some more thorough analysis of the situation. Nobody here is disputing the fact that this economy has been growing consistently at a very impressive rate. Consistently at a very impressive rate. On the average GDP growth of 8%. And you cannot fault an economy that is growing at an average of 8% GDP. That's a fact, and I think that all the panelists here do agree with that. And when an economy is well, I mean, everybody listening to you. Is that okay? Dr. Thompson mentioned the fact that even if you discount oil, the growth level is still very impressive by all accounts. Okay, and he doesn't dispute the figures, that those figures, even during his time when he was the manager of the economy, if he grew at anything close to that figure, I mean, we're told that it was a very impressive growth rate, for which reason we should be applauding him. Today, I'm surprised that a growth rate of that level is not impressive, and it shows that the managers of the economy have a deficit in terms of management skills.
But Dr. Thompson was quick to note also the other aspect of it, the argument of a jobless growth.
I will come to that. And I think that it is important for us, when we're analyzing our economy, to be mindful of the changing structure of our society and our settlement patterns. Okay? In the last couple of years, there has been a massive urbanization program in which there are more people now living in the urban centers than the rural centers. And when they move to the urban centers, they are challenged with a number of issues, housing and etc. And that's why when he gives the example of, two people will be working all right, but one will go and live in a kiosk and the other goes to live in a gated community. That's because of the shifts in population settlement in our country and its impact on certain social infrastructure. The second thing is that we are managing a transition economy, an economy that is moving from poor economy to a developing economy to a lower middle income economy. And the statistics show that poverty has receded significantly. I mean, the last data we had was for 2006, from 1991 to 2006. And poverty has reduced from 51% to 27% in 2006. And by 2015, the indications are that poverty will even reduce much, much further. Okay?
And which is your point of reference here? When you're talking about the statistics that you refer to?
Oh, they're all World Bank statistics. I mean, and also if you look at Statistical Service Department and the figures that they come, if you look at Human Development Index, the Human Development Index has improved significantly from 0.50% to the last one that I checked was about 0.54%. That is a Human Development Index improvement. So across board, there's been improvement. Look, if you look at certain basic infrastructure, access to education, it has improved significantly. If you look at access to even mobile telephony, it has improved significantly. If you look at access to healthcare delivery in this country, it has improved significantly. If you look at access to many other things, they have all improved. And the literacy level of our population has improved significantly. All these are indicators of progress. Now, with these shifts come some fundamental challenges. When the economy was a developing economy, it was designed in such a way that you had very huge subsidies for the population. So you subsidize healthcare, you subsidize education, you subsidize water, you subsidize electricity, you subsidize so many things because of the levels of poverty. Today, with poverty having receded and many of the fundamentals haven't changed, you have to rethink your subsidy. So many people didn't have cars in the 80s, and so we used to subsidize fuel heavily. Today, everybody has a car, and many rich people have cars. Many people who may not necessarily, is that okay, need a car because of the challenges with the public transport system.
Someone may not understand you when you say everybody has a car.
Okay, a lot of people with a minimum income today are able to afford a car. Is that okay? And that puts pressure on many of the things that we used to subsidize and generate, problems for government expenditure.
Right.
And so part of the problem of managing this economy has been how to intelligently address these issues of huge subsidies.
Right.
And so many of
let's do it
important.
This way.
It is important.
Let's do it this way.
Yes.
I find that you want to do the diagnosis, and then when you are done, then you will be able to come to answer to the charge by the TUC.
No.
So this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do.
Now, I just don't want to focus on the TUC because many things have been said here that need to be put in proper perspective.
Right.
Is that okay? I'm not disputing the fact that there is waste. No, I do agree with him. And indeed, government has designed certain programs all aimed at minimizing the waste. I'm not disputing the fact that there's corruption. Is that okay? And it's across board, the public sector, the private sector, and etc.
Yeah, he just spoke about the procurement system.
And we have all been, and we have all,
who are down there, how they go about
we've all been working consistently, starting from those days when he was managing the economy, and then we put in place the Procurement Act and so many other pieces of legislation meant to minimize. Today, we still have some of the problems, and we are thinking of intelligent ways of dealing with these issues. All those clearly affect the economy. But we must accept fundamentally the progress that has been made. And then today, we can be dealing with the nitty-gritties and the challenges of
Let me interrogate a few things further with Dr. Anthony Akutose and Nimoy Thompson, and then I'll come to you. Now, Doc, you were telling us how we got where we are. I want you to take us a little deeper into the issues that you said. You are giving the impression that you prompted the whole nation and government that these were bound to happen.
I'm not giving the impression. We prompted. My last press conference was not judgmental. It just said, for example, if inflation then was 13.5 and government has signaled it's going to increase tariffs, then we should expect that inflation will go higher. That is a fact. So what I was saying was that the Bank of Ghana's policy must take into account that policy that the government has signaled in the budget. If you did that, it would mean you have to put in certain steps to prevent. The governor then was talking about a 9% plus or minus 2. When you're already at 13.5 and these cost push effects are coming, you don't tell us that you are going to stick to 9. How are you going to do it? So I'm saying these are simple matters that there's some inconsistency. And that's what I'll say that. So I looked at the budget.
You spoke about the taxes, for example.
I said,
and you think that they were avoidable?
No, I didn't say they were avoidable.
Yes, because I wanted to be sure, and then you pick one specific and tell me what should have been done properly.
In the budget, the government has increased VAT. It has implications for inflation. Okay, so any measures we are going to take forward must take into account that whether we like it or not, VAT will be operative this year. Two things. On the fiscal side, they must make sure that money is collected. But on the expenditure side, because government itself is a consumer. So it means that the government's budget itself must take into account that VAT has gone up. Let me give you one typical example. In this budget statement, the government assumed that exchange rate will be between 2.1 and 2.2. Do you know what has happened now? We are already above 2.5. Do you know the implication? This budget is out of the window. Any foreign related expenditure must be adjusted upwards by this depreciation of 7% in year one. If the government does not come back to Parliament with a new program, we should be sure that we will not meet the targets. I'm saying these things we should anticipate. When I started, I talked about the seasonality in terms of the pressure on the dollar. It is known. What you do is you call all the big players, the banks. What is your demand? 100 million, 200 million? Then you pump in that amount of money. 20 million cannot meet the demand. We know that. And I'm saying this was anticipated.
They've done 20 and 20.
No, it's not 20 million. I think
$20
he
million.
indicated that they normally pump in 60.
Right.
And they've
That's
increased
the
it
target.
by.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm saying that it was known. If you had done your work, it was known. And I know you have a target of 3 months of import cover, but sometimes you have to give up a little bit on some target to achieve stability. This volatility of 7% in 1 month does not help anybody. Now, later on, I'm sure we'll get to the response by government on how to stabilize it. I'll deal with that later. But all I'm saying was that coming with a deficit of 12% in 2012, knowing that 2013's fiscal deficit is not that much lower, it means the measures that were needed were going to be tougher. The budget did not fully address all of that. So there was a gap. That's why I said, unless the government was going to come back and say, look, given what is going on, we want to change track. I didn't see it. So I'm not surprised that in February we are where we are. But that is the more reason why I believe they must sit down. I don't think this budget is believable because now we are out of the window. So what is next?
I see. Now, sorry, I know you are itching to make a quick response, but please take note of it. Now, Dr. Thompson, from where you sit, how did we get where we are?
Well, I think if we cast our minds back to the press conference by the finance minister, he said something that I wrote it down here. He said, ultimately, we need to increase our exports.
Right.
That's a key element of it. We have not, and this is a structural problem that dates back decades. But I was reading almost a century, actually. I was reading a statement by Guggisberg in 1920, where he was actually warning us. He used the term, putting all our eggs in one basket. And he was referring to cocoa and the need for us to diversify into other products. And he specifically referred to palm oil. At the time, he praised the chief of the Krobo area, Matekole, for being the only person visionary enough to continue to cultivate palm oil. Don't forget that cocoa actually replaced palm oil and rubber. And as it became more profitable, we abandoned it. And since then, we've been dependent on cocoa. The sad part, and I have to say that cocoa has actually held us up all this while. Perhaps we've been too greedy and narrow-minded by depending solely on it to the exclusion of the other ones. I told you about some work that I did in Liberia because they're also working on issues of diversification. And I looked at trends in cocoa, palm oil, and rubber, which are big there, the two, palm oil. It turns out that the prices of cocoa in real terms have actually been declining every year since 1984 by 1.2%. Whereas the price for rubber has actually been increasing by about 5%, and the price for palm oil has been increasing by about 3%. So again, it reminds us of the need for diversification. This is something we should have done years back. Obviously, the time has passed, but it's good for us to look at what could have been done and what we need to do now. I know that Kwame Nkrumah tried to address that with the plantation system, rubber plantations, palm oil plantations, that declined. When Mr. Kufuor came into office, he tried to revive the palm oil sector, you remember. For some reason, I think they ran into land acquisition issues. Our problems are so multifaceted. But this is critical that we do that. And I'm glad that the minister mentioned that ultimately, that is at the base of the problem. What the governor did were mostly the administrative or the institutional aspects of the problem. We have the structural aspects. We have the institutional aspects. We have
and
the
when I
technical
ask you the question where we've gotten to this point, I have in my mind, and I think many of the viewers and listeners are also thinking in the same direction, like Dr. Anthony Akotose would show, that we are at a point that was avoidable. So we should be looking at it from the immediate past, because we were not here. A year ago, we were not here. So
Yes,
What did we do wrong?
It goes back to that. But those are the measures that I've started. And I've said there's the administrative aspect. The bank has done its part. And it says that in the MPC release that it put out, that it has done its part. The government itself, usually in the public discussion, we tend to use the terms interchangeably. That the central bank is the government and so forth and so on. There's some administrative distinction there. It's responsible for monetary policy. The Ministry of Finance is responsible for fiscal policy. And the government as a whole is responsible for economic management, economic policies. So we admit that, yes, we've run into problems. Economists do, as a matter of natural law, run into problems all the time. And so we find ourselves in that. They've started the process of redressing it. At the first phase, it's administrative redress by putting these measures in place. And I know that there was a lot of public uproar. Kukuba mentioned this, but perhaps we should share some of the details of it so that we understand why we got into that. I'm looking at Section 20 of the Foreign Exchange Act of 2006. With your permission, I would just like to quote parts of it. It says, imposition of temporary restrictions by the governor. Where the governor determines that the country is experiencing or has experienced a severe deterioration in its balance of payments, that requires a temporary imposition of exchange controls beyond measures provided for in sections 17, 18, and 19. The governor, in consultation with the minister, may, by notice, make rules to A, restrict payments between residents and non-residents, or non-residents, B, payments to or from the country, C, the acquisition, holding, and use in the country of foreign currency or traveler's checks by persons, including residents. D, the frequency at which the acts of purchase and the sale of foreign exchange may be effected in the country. And the rules shall remain in force for a period of not more than 3 months. And then after 3 months, it can go back and review. So this more or less provides us with some room for breathing and then go back and reflect on what went wrong.
And that again is which section?
Section 20 of the Act.
Section 20.
Which was passed in 2006.
Okay.
Obviously, they anticipated that these things would, and they do happen, not just in Ghana, but in other countries. The important thing is that you recognize that this is happening, and then you put in place the appropriate measures. But then, in doing this, the governor was careful in making, or at least reminding us that, listen, as governor, this is how much I can do. If you look at the concluding part of the MPC release, it spells out medium-term measures and basically passes the ball on to the government and says, okay, government should this do that. Maybe I should show you that part of it here where it talks about it says medium to long-term measures. In the medium to long-term, government must seek, that's what it says. So it's saying basically, I've done my share. Let the government take over. Government must seek to broaden the tax base further, diversify and broaden the export base, reduce imports, especially of consumption goods that have local substitutes, and intensify efforts to block foreign exchange leakages, such as transfer pricing. Now, transfer pricing is actually a major source of leakage of foreign exchange, and that goes to the poor quality of some of the agreements we signed with multinationals, and also weak policing mechanisms. So they sometimes they extend loans to themselves at dubious interest rates that leads to repatriation of profits. They buy things at inflated prices that leads to... So I'm glad that the governor is doing this. Perhaps it's a wake-up call, not just for Ghana, but for the bank itself.
Right.
Because don't forget that this statement that they issued, the release, in 1998, they issued 2 of those. I don't think people remember that. In 2001, they issued 2 also. And then 2012, they issued 1. And now they issued another one. Clearly, each time they issued it, they perhaps just went back to sleep. They fell asleep at the steering. Now, this is the time for us to make sure that they, in fact, follow through and monitor. Because some of these measures, as unpopular as they may seem, were actually necessary. Right. Some of the banks themselves, at least people in charge of the banks.
Deeper into the CD discussion. We'll return to that. And Ms. Ariga, I don't know what exactly you wanted to react to from Dr. Akoton's say, but the question again, and pardon me if I'm not asking you the right questions, but this government, or the government before this one, inherited an economy it told the world was a broke economy. The expectation of the electorate that voted the government and gave it a second term would be that since you know that you have inherited a broke economy, you fix it. This is not the time to come and pass the suffering on to us.
You know, when Kokubako spoke. He spoke about the intelligent management of the economy. And I was giving you the structural issues of the economy that must be addressed. Otherwise, every morning we meet here, we're going to have this same discussion in the next 10 years.
Right.
So unless we recognize this fact and see in the measures that are being implemented today, efforts to address these structural issues, then we'll have the problem. We talk about subsidies. Every year, since he was managing the economy, and I recall, the issue of subsidies have always been there. Dr. Kote said, yes, when he was the Minister of State at the Ministry of Finance, right. And I was in Parliament, and we used to have these discussions of the MPP budgets. These same issues of subsidies have always been there. And how do you maintain a proper balance between, ensuring that you target your subsidies appropriately, be it the energy sector, be it in education, be it in healthcare delivery, and etc. Because that is where the waste is. If you look at the budget, education consumes a significant portion of the budget. Healthcare consumes a significant portion of the budget. If you look at the deficit, and he was asking where were the sources of the pressures that generated the deficit, it was in the energy sectors. The fact that we had to buy oil in order to service the generation plants when we had the energy problems. And so you are buying and serving it to people who on their own can afford. So you have to maintain a proper balance between those who cannot afford and must enjoy the subsidy and those who can afford. And so what you see today are efforts to address these structural problems. I'm not surprised that it will generate some public discontent. But it is a painful pill that we must all swallow. And we're not saying that we don't see the problem. We're not saying that we don't empathize with the Ghanaian public, that they will have to go through this painful process. But if we are to be competitive as a country, we must fix our energy problem. And in fixing the energy problem, we must address the issue of the price of energy products. And then in that process, we'll now see who cannot afford, and we'll see ways of dealing with that. So, for instance, now we're not encouraging everybody in the village, for instance, to use electricity, but we want to make sure that they are connected though. But then we'll encourage them by providing them solar lanterns so that you don't have to put the lights on all the time. But it should be there because you will need it for other services. So we have a massive rural electrification program. But at the same time, we are giving the rural communities solar lanterns. And then we are doing other things that will cushion them. So the process of addressing these structural issues are what are generating the problems for us. Now we look at the source of the pressures. Public pay, the public service itself. I mean, this country has depended largely in terms of employment on the public sector employing. And over the years, we've come to have a really huge public sector. And now we see the public sector consuming over 70% of tax revenue. The average in the sub-region.
The TC has challenged you. They say bring the figures.
We have
they
the figures.
See the figures.
We have the figures. Let me tell you, the average in the sub-region is 35% of tax revenue to public pay expenditure. The average in the sub-region is 35%. Here in Ghana, we are consuming over 70% of non-earmarked tax revenue. So you have these structural issues that you must address. And I think that the TUC can help us in that regard, because to manage the economy efficiently, I mean, the way that they are asking for it, these discussions must take place, and we must address these structural issues. So there are so many structural issues that must be addressed. They talk about the fact that we're importing so much, and the whole week I've been listening to your station and so many other stations, and all those who call and discuss the issue of the depreciation of the cedi say, you can engage in the short-term measures, but overall, you must address the issue of consumption patterns and local production. So import substitution is key, and he just talked about the good candidates, areas where we could have easily, substituted imported products for locally produced products. But there are fundamental issues about how to even encourage investments in these sectors. Today, everybody would prefer to go and then buy oil products from, let's say, Malaysia or those countries that produce oil palm and come and sell in the local market. So there is money chasing imported goods so that you can import. Now, if we find a way of tweeting so that people now move those resources into funding local production. For instance, I come from Boku, and over the years, most of my people have been importers. They go to Burkina Faso, Niger, and etc. They buy onions, they buy cattle, they bring to Kumasi and Accra and sell. They have to look for safer to go back and buy. But when they notice that safer is expensive, it's difficult to come by, what do? They go and look for kola nuts, okay? And go and look for what we produce locally and transport that back and go and sell and then end the safer there and now buy what they produce and bring it. So that money is doing two things. It is funding productive activities in Burkina Faso and also funding productive activities in Ghana. So what we are hoping that these situations that we're experiencing today could do, in my lay economic sense, is that if you are importing things from China and you come and sell and quickly you're looking for dollars to go and change into Chinese currency to buy Chinese goods, you may begin to think about, well, why don't I look for something that the Chinese also want and finance its production locally, and then I can export that to China, and then when I sell and earn Chinese currency, I can buy what I need from Ghana, and then your capital will be financing productive activities in the two economies, and not just financing productive activities in one economy and then creating problems in the consuming economy. So these are structural things that we are seeking to address, both short-term and long-term. And there are measures in this budget. Is that okay? Right. There's the SME stimulus package that is contained in this budget. There's the SME fund that is contained in this budget. There are measures in the agricultural sector that are aimed in the long term to be able to transform agriculture.
What impact these measures are making, we'll find out. This show is brought to you by the kindest sponsorship of Erata Motors. If you're looking for a brand new or slightly used vehicle, if you're looking for Mercedes-Benz, Toyota, Infiniti, Range Rover, you name them, the best place to go is Lagos Avenue, opposite Body Talk, near the GT Bank, East Legon, or call 0244-445-268 or 0277-486-800 and get the best vehicle deals in town. Erata Motors, the best vehicles at the best prices. And the Star Assurance Company, they are your CIMG General Insurance Company of the year 2012, and they also want you to know that they are dedicated to ensuring that you get the very best of insurance products to protect you and your properties, and they invite you to visit them at starassurance.com or call 0302-240-632. Star Assurance, that's your solid partner. Now, Kweku, listening to Dr. Nimoy Thompson and watch Dr. Anthony Akotose, and all of you seem to nod in agreement when he speaks about, refers to the law and speaks about, plans to broaden the tax base, export base, and all of these fine stuff. But it appears nothing is being done really. Or he says no, or why are we where we are?
He insists something is being done. I think I would be very unfair if I said nothing at all is being done. I mean, that doesn't make sense. Development is never in abeyance. It's always ongoing.
Right.
Perhaps the quantity and quality of it and how it impacts that is the critical point. But you see, for instance, if you take a look at these two books I'm holding here, the Better Ghana Agenda, top 50 achievements of the Professor Mills-led government in the first 2 years. Then there was a second one, overview of the Better Ghana Agenda. This was 2012, April. String of development, so many things. Indeed, the issue of the CD, it's here, well captured, how they had stabilized it for the longest period in Ghanaian history. They had arrested the depreciation. Yes, so
for a while.
What were the factors? They rooted it to what they perceived as financial and monetary discipline. According to them, it's here. So, and I'm uneducated when it comes to economics. So what went wrong with the fiscal and monetary discipline that led to the stabilization of the cedi for the longest period in Ghanaian history, according to them? The reverse took place. The reverse, being fiscal and monetary in discipline, especially fiscal.
Especially at the elections, that's what you say.
It was clear. The election cycle has always been part.
8 billion deficit.
The election cycle has always been part of our problem. I'm told it was only in 2004 that was a bit minimal, but it's always been a problem. So there's some lack of discipline on the part of those who are in charge of the statecraft come election period. And there's no doubt that election 2012 had a huge impact on this issue of fiscal stability. There's no doubt about it. You just have to be honest to admit it and then proceed to cure the mischief. But I'm saying that in your
Why they don't admit it is that it's been purely speculative, presumptive.
Oh, but it is obvious. Look, just not that, because it's difficult to pinpoint. But not that it's just corruption. Sometimes there's a matter of misapplication, diversion of funds, and all those things, misappropriation. They are all there. But there were also certain payments that were made. The Jeddah thing is now history, well documented. So we ought not to argue about that. And you can see the time frame when some of those things occurred and the impact it had on the budget. Because you see, most of those things were advertised as achievements of the ruling party and sold to the electorate. So in so doing, you were doing expenditure and not prioritizing and not bothering about the extent of the expenditure. It was all factoring into the fiscal deficit. There's no doubt about that. However well intended it was, you were not looking at the consequences of the expenditure that you were undertaking. And that has an effect. Then the payment of judgment debts of dubious validity also should not be underestimated. Some of which now the courts have ruled to have been illegal. It has an impact. They were not small amounts, big ones. So, well, you can shake your head. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying it's up to the watchers and the listeners and the viewers to make their own judgment. But these are facts. You know, so to be honest with you, I think that we should allocate the blame squarely on the shoulders of the governance, those who are governing, and those who are managing the economy. There's no alternative to that.
You don't want to move from this particular point, that it's about incompetence, really?
Oh, look, the points about external factors, they've always been here. And yet we claim we are making progress in some respects. It is when you bring discipline to bear on your internal factors that you can sometimes resist some of those external things. I agree. The kind of economy we run is such that we'll always be susceptible to external pressures. But the quality of your management helps in withstanding those things. Otherwise, look, let's just raise our hands in desperation and give up.
Okay.
That's what
Mama
we're going to
Yaga's
see.
hand has been up for a while now. I give you a minute to react to that quickly, and then I go back to the two doctors here.
We're looking at two different things. Is that okay? Now we're looking at the deficits. And the deficits issue has been discussed over and over and over again.
He's saying financial indiscipline.
No.
I
think it will be unfair to use such strong words. Honorable was here. He was Minister of State at the Minister of Finance, and I was in Parliament. Almost every year we discussed the need for a Fiscal Discipline Act. Remember?
Yes.
As far back as when they were managing the economy. So fiscal discipline has been a challenge for most economies, including ours.
So you are helping him?
No. It has been a challenge. Is that okay? And so you don't cast it as if it is only today.
No, but the level.
The level. You don't present it as if it is only today that there has been a deficit. And that shows that the managers of the economy are so bad.
I didn't see that. I never gave the impression that we've never... Look, we've always had deficit.
You have also forgotten that the structure of the financing of this economy has changed. Having moved from a developing economy to a lower middle income economy.
With oil revenue
your financing sources have changed.
We have oil revenue
grants,
on top.
the concessional loans and all those things, you no longer have access to them. You need to go to the financial markets and go and get it. And one of the challenges we're facing is the cost of getting it and the interest payments and
have
others.
gone up.
And it is all
And
been
we have
captured.
oil
It's
revenue
all been
on top.
captured.
Add that.
It's all been captured in the budget. Why?
I gave you a minute.
Yes,
I
please,
gave you a
let me
minute.
just. Now, when we come to the specific issues of the city, there are immediate pressures that are generating that. And it's important for us to isolate and discuss it properly. For instance, the fact that gold receipts are decreasing in terms of world gold prices. The fact that cocoa receipts are decreasing because of the fall in world cocoa prices. And then also the reduction in output production here is affecting this. The fact that the U.S. Federal Reserve is implementing tapering policies and there's a shift, a movement of capital from emerging markets to the U.S. is a factor. And that is why you see that what we're discussing here is happening in Turkey, in Argentina, in Malaysia, in South Africa, in Nigeria, in Zambia, and etc. These are global forces, and so it doesn't depend entirely on the competence of a particular economist manager.
On the back of the references that Mahama Yarga makes, the question I want to ask is, how do you get the people along to appreciate that these difficulties are not peculiar to your country, Ghana, and that Ghanaians also, must, as it were, tighten their belts at this time?
Well, I don't think I remember all the references. You made several references. But as I said, the key thing to recognize is that all economies do go through some difficult periods. And we've done that. We are going through that now. And we've initiated the process of trying to get out of that. We've done the administrative part. There is still more to be done. In fact, as my brother Kweku Bakun spoke, I went to the 2014 budget to look at what the minister had to say about petroleum revenue, because there's always a question as to, and the whole section 11, he talks about the difficulties we had. If you don't mind, I'll read part of it. The current legislative arrangements on distribution of petroleum receipts to allow to allowable expenditures under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act 2011 do not augur well for aligning the receipts to national priority programs. And then I will skip a part of it. He said, therefore, we will be laying proposals before the House, both as fiscal consolidation and PRM review. So there are institutional issues yet to be addressed, besides the issue of how the revenues are distributed in the first place. The very fundamental issues of also the kinds of agreements we sign with some of these multinationals. This is not something we can brush over easily. I know that the president has talked about the need for us to take a second look, to put it mildly, at some of these agreements. They don't always. Every time I attend an international conference on ethical investment, Ghana always comes up as an example of the kinds of things you don't want to do when you are signing agreements with multinationals.
Interesting.
So, it comes up because for some reason we rushed into that. Even in sale of certain strategic assets, you look at the sale and purchase agreements, it's clear that we did not understand. Well, I didn't mention anything because we are in court. But a simple term like transaction consideration and sale and purchase price, we didn't know the difference. We confused the two. Thinking that we're going to receive a certain amount of money. In the end, we didn't receive the money at all. We actually paid the purchasers more money. So these are structural, also institutional issues that we need to look at. Unfortunately for us, structural problems cannot be solved with administrative fiat. The institutional part can be done, and the governor did that in 24 hours. Fairly easy. The structural one is the hard part, where we need to roll up our sleeves and begin to think through the problems, come up with the policies that we need to pursue. Part of it is, obviously, as the Minister of Finance said, raising export earnings, but also modulating the quality of our imports. If you look at some of the stuff that we have for imports, it's just mind-boggling. If you don't mind, I will just share a portion of that with you. They refer to that as offal or whatever. I can't find it, but I'll get it later on. But things like chicken, rice, and so forth and so on, we import them. There's nothing wrong with importing per se. Every country imports some to some degree or another, they do imports, even things that they produce. But the excessive nature of it and even the quality of the imports need to figure within the debate.
I'll come to you briefly. Then you speak to us about, having listened to all the sides, what you want to say briefly, and then I'll move on to pick from you all maybe in a minute or two. Just list for me what you expect to change in the short term. There are some of the messages that are coming in. Prince Minka is asking Kukubako. He says, what is being done to add value to the materials we export? Akum Aveka, right? If you do over 80% wage increase for public sector workers with 30% of your expenditure coming from donors or grants, you need to find money to pay for it, especially if the increase is not a result of increase in productivity. One way to do that is to allow the cedi to depreciate. So if you exchange your dollar earnings, oil, gold, and cocoa at a depreciated X rate, you have more local currency cash to pay for the wage increase. Pema in Togo or Tongo writes, where are those who descended on the brilliant Baumia when he diagnosed all these problems ahead of time? An economy that is run by propagandists will never accept the truth. Kofi Sika writes, with the brilliant enlightenment by the Honorable Ayaraga, is this an economy which is in despondency or hopelessness? How could anybody claim the nation is in despondency with all these indicators enumerated by Ayaraga? Jerry Amponsa Sabato in New York writes, now that President John Mahama is drowned in the economic mess, how is he going to bridge the gap between the northern poor and southern rich? He is gradually becoming a disappointment. Okay. Bonti Benjamin writes, did Mahama Ayaraga check the actual reality on the ground before coming out with the theories they used to deceive the Ghanaian people for votes? Mr. Ayaraga, please, our economy needs a practical solution and not rehearsed action. Samuel Bryan Boabeng in Awoshi writes, the measures put in place by the Mahama and Mr. Arthur-led NDC government and the BOG, that's the Central Bank's boss, Dr. Kofi Wampa, to halt the second worst decline among African currencies this year will cause panic in the economy and a hoarding of US dollars. Is this the right way to manage an economy? The NDC government is indeed confused. Right, we'll get to this issue when we return from the break we're going to take right now. Amponsa finally, right? Samson, now the impression is that President Mahama has totally lost grip on the economy. Gradually, we are sinking deeper and deeper. Now, let me hear from you, as I asked earlier.
I've tried to restrain myself from not going to the direction Honorable Ayaraga is going. So I'll see if I can maintain that.
Well, he's speaking to the facts as he knows them.
He started talking about Vodafone, and I didn't want to go. I didn't want to go into areas that will detract our viewers. But let me. Kweku talked about incompetence. I will not use that word, but let me give you a fact. 2009, the over expenditure above the Appropriations Act, that's the law, was $300 million. 2010.
Dollars or cedis?
Here I'm using dollars. No, sorry, you're right.
Yeah,
Cities.
because
sorry.
I don't want the governor to come after you for
2010. This over expenditure, notice my choice of words, above the Appropriations Act. I haven't talked about the deficit yet. 800 million. 2011, 1.3 billion. 2012, 4.8 billion. Now the trend is obvious. You mean, and if you read the Hansard, every statement I made, this is there. If you're a government, you have to accept the fact that there's something wrong and see where it is. The difference between 1.3 in 2011 and 2012 is just too huge. Now, if you talk about a deficit, that translates into approximately 9 billion for 2 consecutive years, including 2013. You can't continue on that path. So what does the government do? Okay, the easiest solution is higher taxes. Look, there's nothing that says that if you bring more taxes, you get more revenue. Because if businesses cannot pay, they'll collapse, fire people, and therefore you get less revenue. The last 3 years, last year, the revenue target we lost by 17%. The year before, we lost it. These are facts that you must factor in your economic management process. This issue about the wage bill, we are talking around it. 70%, look, the tax revenue in 2014 is expected to be 20 billion. The compensation, that's wages including gratuities, is about 10 billion. Let's say 50%. Fine. So what is the solution? You and I know that having 600,000 people on the public payroll is not sustainable. But everybody is quiet. Politically, it's too sensitive to talk about. Well, we keep hiding, doing that. We'll never solve it. The question you ask is, when you adopted the policy, didn't you know the implications that you have to pay a certain amount? So it is not that we don't know. It's like we are talking around it. We must deal with it. I worked at the Ministry of Finance. He may be able to tell you something else. I can tell you for a fact, in the ministry when I was there, about 30%, let me be generous, maybe 40% of the workforce was what we were using to do the work there. It means 60% is redundant. Now, the difficulty is that private sector employment is not good to capture, it's not robust enough to capture if you lay off. But something must be done. You cannot continue. We may have to end up paying more. Why do I say that? Because we need more teachers, we need more health workers. So I'm not saying that, but let's put it in the right places. So the government must sit down and talk with labor and see what is the way forward. They've been talking about productivity.
Would you have laid off workers in this situation?
You are in charge. That's why people elected you.
You are an alternative.
I'm saying look at it. Talk about it. You are in charge. You are in government. I'm not in government. You are paid to solve the problem.
You are the ranking person on the economy.
I'm not the government employee. You are the minister.
I'm asking you, if it were MP, will you lay off all these workers?
If I were the president,
will you lay off 60% of the public workers?
I'll lay off 60%. I'm saying look at it. You are not even willing to talk about it.
Oh, no.
Let me talk about one of the solutions the government has been doing, which is not very good. You cannot borrow your way out of every problem. The type of borrowing. Look, it is nice when you go to China, they offer you 10 billion, you rush to take it. My brother, how do you go and borrow 3 billion and pay a commitment fee of 1% of the undisbursed balance? Commercial. That is simply not acceptable. Right. Concessionary loans, yes. We have paid 54 million. Now, if you go into the area, look, the Chinese wanted our oil, period. If you read the PIAC report on how we are using our oil, we should be worried. We should be worried. These are the issues that are causing us trouble. Everybody, we said, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, since 2010, the expectations have gotten high. But let me give you a good example. In the budget, a certain amount of oil production is anticipated. But already, they are having difficulties. Like, we are going to go down to 70,000. We know this fact. How are we factoring that in terms of revenue? It means revenue will go down. Somebody must be sitting down and say, hey, let me go back and revise. I'm not seeing it. That is why I said in the early part of January, the government should be coming back with a new budget. This one is out of the window. Right. It's not credible.
Okay, we'll take a break at this point, and like I said, when we return, and gentlemen, I want you to respect that strictly so we can discuss the issue of the CD. In a minute, tell me what you expect to change in order to change the situation that Ghanaians currently face, and all of you admit, but speak to how it should be managed. And I need to tell you that MTN Ghana Foundation will organize its annual blood donation exercise on Friday, February the 14th, to support the National Blood Bank. The exercise would be held in the following locations: Accra, MTN Red Tower Office, Takoradi Market Circle, Kumasi Forecourt of Independence Hall, and Adum near the new footbridge, and at the Tamale Teaching Hospital in Tamale. The annual blood donation exercise is organized every year to give MTN staff, individuals, and other corporate bodies the opportunity to donate blood for the National Blood Bank. The target for this year's blood donation exercise is 500 pints of blood from all locations. The MTN Ghana Foundation is appealing to members of the public to come out in their numbers to express their love on Valentine's Day by donating a pint of blood to help save a life. MTN is grateful to the Nestle, Milo, EcoBank, and their media partners for supporting the blood donation exercise. Join MTN to brighten someone's life this Valentine's Day. Your blood can save a life. Thank you very much. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. We are privileged to have Dr. Nimoy Thompson, Dr. Anthony Akotose, Mahama Yariga, and Kweku Bako Jr. And the show is coming to you live from the Multi-TV studios. This is your Joynews channel. You're listening to us on Radio Joy 99.7 FM and over a dozen affiliate stations across the country. You're listening on the internet, myjoyonline.com, and watching also via Multi-TV World/streams. The show is also available on the ABN platform, your Sky Channel 260, and that's in the UK or elsewhere in Europe. Now, the question remains, what are your expectations? I'll start with Kwekubako.
Before we do that, you introduced the two of them, you added doctor to their names.
Honorable.
I think that Kwekubako should be awarded a doctorate by one of the public universities in this country.
Exactly.
Because his contribution to public discourse and the democracy of this country and so many other things should earn him a doctorate. I've heard them and seen them awarding doctoral degrees, honorary ones, to so many people in this country. Perhaps, you know, for some reasons,
you certainly are not the first to have said this. Right.
I think so too.
Right. You're not the first, and in fact, there are people who are saying that the universities, one of them should be fast enough. Okay, so Kweku.
Well, I'm embarrassed. Even though flattered, but I'm embarrassed. And thanks for that, but I'm not sure there'll be a consensus on that. Across the nation, there will definitely not be a consensus.
There won't be a consensus even if you wanted to confer that on Jesus Christ.
Yes. What are we expecting? My expectations? Yes, that's, you see, I was surprised because some of the earlier discussions, we brought in the CD indirectly.
Right.
So it's difficult to
Okay, so let's do it this way. Let's finish with the discussion with the CD.
Yeah.
And then we use that question to end the entire discussion.
Sure.
And talking about the CD, you've heard some say, well, the CD is plummeting bad. Then you hear others say it is falling like stone thrown from heaven. How crashing can that fall be? The CD has depreciated by 3% against the major international currencies this month. The US dollar, which sold at 2 cedis 20 pesos on the local foreign exchange market before Christmas last year, now sells at 2 cedis 60 pesos. The British pound, which sold at 3 cedis, now sells at 4 cedis 20 pesos. The euro and CFA are also selling at 3 cedis 50 pesos and 4 cedis 80 pesos respectively. In 2013, the local currency suffered 17% depreciation. The year-on depreciation shows a 21.96% depreciation of the CD against the dollar. That's a lot. I'll ask Dr. Akotose, what does this mean? What exactly does it mean?
Let me try and put it as simple as I can get. You see, everybody knows that in Ghana, we consume a lot of imported items of all kinds.
Toothpick.
So, take it that our demand for all goods and services, including foreign items,
including catapults,
is bigger than the supply of foreign currency. That's the simplest way I can put it. So the more that we demand for these goods, because we don't have dollars, we need to find dollars or euro or pound to purchase those goods. If our capacity to supply on gold, cocoa, oil is not enough, there will be a shortage. And hence, the price, relative price, will go higher. It's as simple as that. But I want to go into what the Bank of Ghana doing. I think Nimoy gave the legal backing for what they're doing. I have no... Sorry.
Before you go into what the Bank of Ghana is doing, Dr. Thompson, can you also try to let us appreciate what this actually means, that you have an economy, that is doing 13.5 inflationary, percentage rates. You have over 23% interest rate. What's all this about? It is, and you say that the inflation, and whatever it is, we are doing below 7%. I don't understand all of that. What does it mean?
Well, first of all, the inflation rate and the exchange rate are typically related, depending on circumstances. Sometimes the inflation rate will trigger depreciation to make up for the difference. And sometimes the exchange rate will be the equivalent of imported inflation. So that's a technical aspect of it. But at the practical level, and beyond the administrative measures of the central bank, as I said, the Minister of Finance has already said that at the base of it is the need for us to increase exports and earn more. But what happens also with imports, the quantity of imports, the quality of imports is equally important. Initially, I was looking for something I couldn't find, but I just identified that, I've located that. This is the top 10 imports, imported non-oil goods in the third quarter of last year. Third quarter, so you just annualize it. And it's quite interesting. At the top of it is motor vehicles for transport of goods and services. But then we move to consumption. Within consumption, we have rice, which is $110 million that we spend in one quarter. So if you annualize it, that's over something like $450 million that we spend every year in importing rice. That alone also gives us the baseline or context for initiating policies. What do we do? So in a year, we spend $400 million. Perhaps we should set a target of reducing it to 300. But then what do we do in order to attain that target? We do this, we do that, and so forth and so on. You look at frozen fish, and it's funny because we are one of the few countries to have a coastline, long coastline, inland water bodies, and so forth. Frozen fish was 66 million in 3 months. Sugar, 62 million. Insecticides, which I found kind of interesting. When I raised that with someone, he said, well, it may be pesticides for cocoa and other, but it's not clear. In any case, insecticides is quite high, 60 million in 3 months. Poultry cuts and offals. Now, honestly, I didn't know what offals meant when I first read this, so I had to look it up in the dictionary. And it means the unwanted parts of the poultry in Europe. We import them, the gizzards, the bola, more or less. We spend $60 million. You say bola, the garbage from the chicken. That's $51 million. So that's like $200 million for the year. Tomatoes, prepared and preserved. That's consumption. The intermediate goods, wheat, cement, and so forth. The last one, and this is where the lower middle income thing comes in, that's motor vehicles for transport of persons. That's the top 10. Right. And that last element actually is a reflection of rising incomes. But rising incomes largely to a very considerable extent in an aspect of the economy that doesn't really contribute to the tradables aspect. And yet the demand, once the cars come in, they also have to use petrol, which is imported. They have to use spare parts, which are also imported. So it becomes a cycle. And then lastly, remember when the minister spoke, he talked about the need for us to have some sort of a forum, engaging organized labor employers. This is very critical. I suggest that we go broader, bring in things like GUTA, a much broader forum for us to all see where our responsibilities lie also as citizens, not just the government, but also as citizens. Would it be necessary for some sort of behavioral change so that we move to other things rather than offals, chicken offals?
So, Doc, you are now moving to talk about the measures that have been put in place by the Bank of Ghana. Yes. And if you could help, for the benefit of those of us who may have been busy in the course of the week and didn't follow and are not aware of the directives that were issued and exactly what the content of these directives were, what are they?
Basically, the Bank of Ghana has issued what technically are called notices, right, backed by the Foreign Exchange Act of 2006. One of them dealt with the operation of Forex bureaus, what they can or cannot do. A revision. Notice I said a revision because the laws have been there. The other one, which I find most significant, and I've been hearing Kweku on TV talking about it, is the Forex and foreign accounts that were opened, people were allowed to open in our banks. The way I look at it, I could be wrong. Essentially, you cannot, it is not your interest, let me put it that way, to open a Forex or foreign account. That's the de facto effect. Secondly, what you have there, essentially, you can use when you want to travel. That's really what it boils down to. Now, I ask myself, and here I may help. I'm not a lawyer,
right?
But I had a contract with a bank that allowed me to open legally, not illegally. Then somebody has the fiat and said, I'm sorry, you have a contract to open a foreign currency account, but I'm going to give you cedis. I think Bank of Ghana.
Accrued interest.
No, they don't give you interest.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking legal.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay,
I'm talking
right,
legally.
Okay,
Is that
right.
you had an interest that existed before, and then matters are coming up.
But
let him react to it quickly, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
So this is what he's saying. We generally, like, if you want to look at it from the constitutional point of view, the Constitution frowns on laws that are made to seek to, we call it retroactivity. I have a right which existed before a law that is being made, and the law is seeking to affect my right which already existed. How can that be? I was listening to a woman say she went to the bank yesterday. She has a Forex account. She says, I want money. They say you have to get Ghana cedis, and she couldn't understand that.
Yeah, precisely. I mean, this is so straightforward, I'm surprised. The retroactivity principle doesn't apply here.
Why not?
No, it doesn't apply to previous transactions. You see, you could open a Forex account.
I opened the Forex account under a certain contract.
You can still
and the contract was that I'm opening a Forex account, and I can come and have my money in the same currency.
You can still open a Forex account. The law is not saying you cannot open a Forex account. You can still open one. All the law is saying is that in the public interest, and what is the public interest? There is a huge demand for foreign currency. And in this country, you cannot spend foreign currency. So when you bring in foreign currency, you should surrender it to the banks so that the economy can trade in that foreign currency.
Okay, I'll go back to him.
So
but
that
the question,
you don't use a foreign currency as an investment, a holding account, as a place where you save your money. Because that's what essentially people are doing. Because of the change in the value of the cedi, they prefer to bring their money, go and buy foreign currency, and hold that money in foreign currency, and prevent the foreign currency from circulating in the system.
Okay.
So this
what
is
I
a public
see him
interest.
asking you is that despite the existence of Section 20 of the Act, 2006, that Dr. Nimoy Thompson graciously read for us, can't you begin to see that these banks, continuing in this manner, are likely to face some suits?
No, not at all. I mean, the banks themselves are subject to the Bank of Ghana Act, and then, of course, also the Foreign Exchange Act. I've also read the Foreign Exchange Act. In fact, there are two. There's a 1970-something Foreign Exchange Act, which deals with misrepresenting the pricing of export and import commodities so that you can hide foreign receipts.
Okay, I have my answer. I wanted a direct one. You say there's no room for any litigation in this respect.
There's no room. Right. I don't see any litigation at all.
My disappointment is that,
continue.
despite of the fact that the governor has a legal role, my position is that, look, in a country where 80% of your people are unbanked, any action that tends to discourage people bringing their money to the bank cannot help us. You see, this thing started last year. It's not only this year. Where, and I know because a few of my colleagues went to their banks and they were told that they will only be given money in cedis. So it effectively started last year. And I'm talking about my colleagues who are at the higher end of the society, are refusing to take any more Forex into the banks. 80% of our economy is informal. These traders who walk about, they need to be educated to encourage them to bring their Forex that they get from money transfer into the banking system. So that we can get more money. Because you say it's a shortage. So you need more supply, not less. So encourage them. But this, I'm afraid, look, our history is obvious. Every time and notice the word there is temporary controls. Every time we've brought controls, it has not helped us. As Kweku says, I will not be surprised if the alternative market begins to come up. So we say BNI and security. Look, if BNI and national security can do it, it will be easy. They cannot.
They can.
Mahama, do you know how many people,
they can.
how many traders every day are looking for currency? They are Abasokai people. All of your BNI cannot monitor all of them. All of your BNI, they can't. And they shouldn't. You see, anytime you bring security matters into the banking system, you discourage confidence, you decrease confidence. I think that the policy part, which I agree, that's the other leg people don't talk about. It is not automatic, but jacking up interest rates, what does it mean? You want people to save in CD assets. That is encouraging.
Dollar assets.
But look, Turkey went up by 400 basis points, but money is still going out. So it doesn't mean that our 200, but I think that is what I expect.
Reduces how much money goes.
Yes, I think that's what. But that is encouraging people to come into the banking system.
Yes.
These administrative matters will discourage.
Yes.
And the other thing I expect them to do...
You need a mix of the policies. You need a mix of the policies. You need the incentives, and then you need the disincentives.
Go back to our history.
Yes.
Anytime you bring a little panic in the banking thrives on confidence and no fear, no panic. See, we know what happened to the 50 CD notes and all of that. You don't want to do that. So for me, as a person, anything that encourages people to bring in rather than not take out is what we need. Yes, you have the legal mandate, but in the end, the law can make an ass of you and me. You will not be able to catch them. Don't criminalize your citizens. Pretend that everybody is a criminal. Because you are saying, BNI. Why you talk about the bankers? What is the BNI going to do with the banking system?
I don't think we should really bring in issues of
They said they are going to use national security to monitor. It's not possible.
Effectively, you are saying that this is not good a measure.
Let me respond to the issue.
I'm saying that our history will confirm that every time we've introduced it, it has not helped us. It has, unfortunately...
We should not have done this.
The fact that I have the legal ban... In fact, if they were going to do that, they've been doing that since... last year, and I've seen the effect. It has discouraged people from putting money in the bank. In fact, it has encouraged a lot of my colleagues from withdrawing their money. Earlier last year, even people like me.
You're a member of parliament, and you were in parliament in 2006, right?
Yes.
Why did you amend this law? This law was existing in a different form.
You need an outlet to signal temporary, short-term measures to stabilize things. Short-term. You must be working on the long term, as you said. But there may be short-term instances.
Are these not the situations that the law anticipated, and then you, as members of parliament, decided to put it black and white? And again, the heading is imposition of temporary restrictions.
Yes.
And it says that where the governor determines that the country is experiencing or has experienced a severe deterioration in its balance of payments that requires a temporary imposition of exchange controls beyond measures provided for in blah, blah, blah. The governor, in consultation with the ministry, may make such
I'll tell you
notices.
what I would have done. The law supports me. It doesn't mean that I automatically apply it.
What would you have done?
I would have raised interest rates. I would have brought more than 20 million in the system. And I'm saying this
interest rates have already been raised.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm saying I support it. But then I will temporarily go off my reserve target and bring more money in the system because this was anticipated.
80 million has been brought into the system.
Hold on. I'm saying the first signal of 20 million was not credible. When it's not credible, it doesn't work.
Additional 20 million.
Let me finish. We knew that there was the demand around January and February. We knew the quantum. Or we should have anticipated it. Bring enough, not 20 million, to assuage people that, we'll defend it. I think it would have been better than going to controls.
Right. Let me now hear,
I think so.
let me now hear Dr. Thompson on the measures that have been put in place by the Bank of Ghana.
I think, you see, every policy initiative has a certain amount of blowback or dislocation. That's whether it's positive or whatever. So I won't be surprised that some people react like that. But I believe the vast majority of people will have an interest in actually keeping their money there.
Various stakeholders within the chain have been out there kicking against it, that this is bad for us.
Yes, it will be. If you read the law, it says for a period no more than 3 months. And within that, the Bank of Ghana has other options. This is not something you just announce and then go back and sit down there and watch.
Right.
But it is, in our long-term interest, it's actually better that no one goes into a bank to take our dollars to spend in the city economy. That's what should have been the case a long time ago.
Right.
I lived in South Africa for 2 years. Even when I came to Ghana and went back with dollars and trying to put that back into my account in South Africa, I had to show my passport that I actually traveled before and all that. It's in every country. Go to Ethiopia, for example. You walk into a hotel in Ethiopia, you give them $1, they say, go to the bank. And so all the big banks have banks, all the big hotels have banks in there. You have to go and change into birr and then come and pay.
In South Africa, you never are able to pay in dollars?
No. In fact, it's against the law there. I remember going to Switzerland and trying to pay with euros. They said, no, this is Switzerland, we use Swiss francs. So there needs to be that sanity, but ultimately...
It may be the exception, but...
No, it's not the exception. No.
It may be the exception.
No, let me wrap it up. Let me wrap it up.
I'm saying that...
Ultimately...
What I say may be the exception is situations where people can use dollars to transact in South Africa, physical cash.
No. You can't even do that.
Oh, it's possible, I'm telling you.
This is... Unless you go out... Of course, for every rule, there's an exception. So people like to do things on the side. Especially, yeah. But the point I was trying to wrap up with is that ultimately, we need to develop confidence in the economy.
Right.
In our currency, such that someone may have a dollar account there, they have a CD, and they go in there and they prefer to have it in CDs instead of dollars.
Right.
Until you do that, there will be this propensity for people to want to spend dollars in the city economy. That doesn't mean that you allow that. It is illegal. The law says that it is forbidden. But there are contradictions also that we need to address as the Bank of Ghana goes forward. How do you permit people to open hard currency accounts in a country that the CD is the legal tender? There's a bit of a fuzzy area that there needs, but that's the nature of public policy. There's no country in the world I know where public policy or the laws are black and white, and therefore you took a decision, that's the end of it. But this is an evolving task. They've done the administrative part. We now need to focus more on the structural aspects of it, production, exports, modulating our imports. You mentioned the catapult. I see that in traffic sometimes, and I say to myself, where the hell are we going?
And in fact, the insecticide, if you look carefully in traffic, you find them.
They sell quite
you were not quite sure about what insecticide
yes, and you see, that's the multiplicity or the multifaceted nature of our problem. Because if we have so many mosquitoes to the point where we're importing $60 million US worth of insecticides, that then takes you back to the issue of local government. What is local government doing? Kofu, you like to say that?
That's why I was for really cocoa.
Oh, for cocoa, okay.
And agriculture.
Agriculture, okay. But there's still those issues that we need to look at. I mean, chemical production. At this time in our development, we really ought to have had at least some rudimentary capacity to produce these things, given the importance of cocoa and all that.
Jute bags. Yes.
Yes.
We're going to do fertilizer with part of the gas.
Okay,
So,
exactly. So I'm really looking forward to this powwow or the forum that the Minister of Finance talked about, so that we come together and share ideas across different spectrums beyond the usual groups of people that we usually call the organized labor, employers, and so forth and so on. The trading associations need to be part of these things. Citizens group, farmer-based organizations.
Yeah.
Usually we tend to leave out the farmers because we think, well, they're illiterate and so forth. And some of them may be illiterate, but it doesn't mean that they are not rational human beings. No farmer will buy something, whether they've been to school or not, at 5 cedis and sell it at 3 cedis. So ultimately, we're all rational.
Right.
We need to bring everyone to the table.
But the attitude as though this is the panacea is not the best. And I was talking to you also about the currency, for example, in South Africa that you speak about, in Zimbabwe, in Dubai, in Spain, in Italy, in the UK. You can use both the local currency and you can use the dollar as well.
In South Africa, for instance?
No, I'm not speaking about South Africa. I'm talking about the other examples that I mentioned.
I haven't been to those countries, but I do know that, in fact, it's a rule of thumb, is to encourage your currency to be used as local tender, unless the law explicitly states so. Zimbabwe adopted the dollar because of those unwarranted sanctions that the West imposed on them. And it threw their currency out of whack, and so they said, okay, let's adopt the US dollar. So theirs is a unique situation. But we've come from that period in the 1980s where we necessarily, it was...
Also referred to Dubai, Italy,
Dubai,
Spain.
come on. There's Spain. I don't know about Spain and all those places, they all use euros. If you go in there and they allow you to use dollars, obviously it's against the law. They allow that. It's against the law there.
Okay.
You cannot do that.
Thank you very much. Ms. Ariga, now you were talking, and there's a key aspect of what they talk about, which is a major concern. How to police the process and make it effective. Getting, and you think the BNI can be effective, getting security to go to Cowley has happened in the 70s, in the 80s. It didn't work. Why is the confidence now that it will work?
Now, let me just tell you what it is that we're trying to do. One basic thing that we're trying to do is to, as much as possible, move away from the dollarization of the economy.
That point is noted.
Where people fix...
talking about policing the black market.
Yes, where people even fix rents in dollars. And so I have to go and look for dollars to pay that person. Where people sell basic things in dollars, so I have to look for...
They quote in dollars, or they pay in the city equivalent?
In the shop, if you go there and then you say dollars, they take it. Are you getting my point? So we're trying to deal with the issue of dollarization.
It's very pervasive.
Now, yes, and we would be able to do that. I am not comfortable with a situation where we agree that something should be done about dollarization, but have issues with the way that it is being done because it will cause discomfort for some people. Naturally, it has to cause discomfort. Not extreme. I mean, it has to cause some discomfort.
Oh, it's extreme discomfort to this woman who puts her dollar in the bank, goes there and says, I need dollars for this particular transaction, and she can't get it.
No, what kind of
and
transaction?
When she gets it in the city equivalent, she doesn't get it at the rate that she bought the dollars, which she's put in the bank.
The law will not, you are not a financial institution. So you cannot be doing the business of keeping monies in different currencies so that you can profit from the price margins.
Dr. Akutose is telling you that what you are effectively succeeding in doing is stopping them from bringing the money to the bank, which you need.
No, excuse me. There are two things happening. There is a trader buying his goods and then coming to sell it and then making profit from the price margins. Then there is the practice of using the different currencies that you do business in and turn it around in a certain way to make margins on the money. What we're saying is that as for when you need money to go and then buy goods, use the banking system. Let the banks capture what you are doing. Is that okay? There is a mechanism for ensuring that you get the money. But when you want to do business with currencies, we will stop you. I mean, today, what is happening is that the banks themselves, people come and deposit monies with them. They don't allow the money to pass through their own systems. They have what you call the alternative market people standing by from morning till evening at the bank. This person brings his money, they quickly collect it, they run to Cow Lane, they trade with it from morning till evening, they would have made some margins, and then they come back and then find a way of capturing it in their books. So you have a situation where the formal institutions of banking themselves are working with these alternative markets and creating a speculation. No. Why? No. As a state, I'm telling you that as a state.
What he's accusing the banks of engaging in illegal activities.
Some people. There are individuals in the banks. There are individuals in the bank who do that.
When you talk about this, if you have evidence, take it to the security agencies. Let's not come on air and say that. That's my point about don't criminalize people.
But Doc, we know about some of these.
I don't know. If he does, the proper thing is to report them. Otherwise, people will think that is what everybody is doing.
So that is the point that I'm making, that we have the capacity to enforce those ones. And that is where we have to use our intelligence agencies, such as the BNI and all these. They will be watching the banks. Who is sitting there? Who has brought money? Who has taken it out? Was there documentation?
You're back to my question.
Yes.
You're back to the part of the example I gave you.
Yes. So
that in the 70s, you used them at Cow Lane to fight black markets. It didn't work. In the 80s, you used them. It didn't work.
The economies
How is it going to work now?
The economies of the 70s, and the economy of the 80s, and today's economy are completely different. So let us not...
The BNIs and the police of that era is completely different from today's.
The structure of the economy was different from what it is today. My argument is that we can enforce our regulations. I mean, it's not... Look, today, if you want dollars, you just drive around the airport, between the runabout and the airport runabout itself, you can exchange $500,000 there. I mean, there.
Yes, unsolicited, they'll call you up.
Yes. How difficult is it for our security agencies to stop that from happening? Why? You pretend that you also want to buy dollars, person gives you dollars, immediately you arrest the person. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
The question is,
the point
how do we get to the countries that we are seeking to emulate? Where you get into that country, and you are unable to use the dollar, and if you want
working.
And if you want the dollar, or if you want to exchange, the processes that you go through,
our institutions
you surrender your passport.
Let me just say that our institutions should work. Why? The hotels are regulated by somebody. The person should be up and doing and seeing to it that the practices in the hotel are consistent with the laws. The police, the intelligence agencies, the banking sector is an institution.
Is that okay?
It is licensed. Let me finish.
He's supplying some of the solutions.
Yeah, that what we want to avoid is the creation of the appearance or reality of a police state. Yes. So we should enforce the law, right? But I don't want a situation where we have soldiers and police going in groups. And the governor himself alluded to how they're going to do some of these things. He used the term mufti, that people will make disguised purchases and whatnot. This should be random, and it shouldn't be so systematic. Yeah. For some of us who grew up in the 1970s, we still have very horrible memories. I grew up in Kumasi, and I still have very vivid memories of a woman getting slapped for selling above control price.
You have a right to arrest them. You can't slap them.
Excuse me, but
democracy has grown.
So there's administrative ways of monitoring that.
Right.
We can do so.
Now let's move to Koku to talk about the effectiveness of the measures vis-a-vis the key and cardinal points of policing the measures.
See, once upon a time, we dynamite a whole market with explosives intended to kill a certain mischief, Kalabuli. It didn't work. And that is the problem I have with this apparent control and command measures that we are putting out there. I read Dr. Thompson indicated that the rules, that is it 22, the rules shall remain in force for a period of not more than 3 months.
Right.
If you come to 23, it says, despite subsection 2, the governor in consultation with the minister may extend the time frame designated for the operation of the rules for a period of not more than 3 months and for any subsequent period that the governor in consultation with the minister may determine. So there's even the option of extending this 3 months. How long? Something ought to happen to make this temporary measure non-functional. Something ought to happen, and that thing doesn't even belong to the bank.
The central bank.
Yes, it doesn't.
Yes. But that's why
yes, and I think that if you look into the statement they issued, and Dr. Thompson alluded to it, this paragraph 15, it says all this after elaborating all those measures. It says all these measures must be reinforced by ensuring that all the budgetary targets are strictly adhered to for fiscal consolidation.
Okay. Yeah. You are back to your fiscal discipline.
Can we?
We are striving to.
I remain cynical. I remain very cynical. Yes, I have to. I'm entitled to the cynicism because of the history.
Let me provide you some information. Why?
No, I think we are discussing the wrong issues. No, we are discussing the wrong issues.
He posed the question.
We are not discussing the wrong issues.
When you frame the issues wrongly.
Hold on
1 minute. Hold on 1 minute.
We are discussing enforcement.
It's not enforcement.
He mentioned. Hold on 1 minute. Let's hear you.
He was reading the government statement. The government says, we've done all of this. As long as the fiscal targets are met, and I'm saying you and I, let me give you information. Simple information. The budget assumes an exchange rate of 2.19 to 2.22. As we speak today, we are beyond that. What does that mean? The expenditure estimates have gone out. So when he asks the question, hold on.
You forget to add that there are also receipts that are in dollars. Is that okay? So if those estimates were based on we receiving a certain amount of...
Can you let me finish? I'm just saying, oil.
Yeah.
The estimates that we have put here is out of the window. Why? The productions have been revised from 110 to 70. So I'm saying, even on that side, there's going to be a gap. So it's legitimate to ask, how are we going to achieve these targets? Inflation, we already are bound the target. Let us find out what will be necessary. So the solution must go back to the fiscal.
No, but excuse me.
Hold on, gentlemen. You also ought to know that a section of the public is disappointed in you, the lawmakers, who are their representatives, because you speak a lot about the over expenditure and everything else beyond the appropriation acts or whatever it is, and yet we know, for example, that there can be surcharges by the Auditor General. They don't happen. Parliament doesn't bite, doesn't complain about it.
Parliament is not responsible for collecting the surcharges.
No, but you also have a role as the PAC to ensure that the things you do are followed.
Public Accounts Committee reports tell us what ought to be done.
Okay.
I just want to frame something.
I didn't even.
Koku was making a point.
Did I actually make any submission? I began. I didn't end. See, I proceeded from that angle because I see that the enforcement, the methods, the methodology, this apparent police approach is unsustainable. Obviously. And that's why I read this 23, that how long could a central bank continue to consult a minister in order to be extending this temporal measures?
Are you saying it should not be done at all?
No, you don't get me. I'm saying that it's not
unsustainable, so it should not be done.
No. So, because it's unsustainable, we need to factor in this point about the physical discipline. Yes, that is the key.
And you read that they acknowledge that ought to be done.
Yes, so I am saying, but that's why I said I'm cynical as to whether those in charge of the management of the economy, especially from the physical point of view, they have improved. The track record is not there. That's the basis for my cynicism. Otherwise, all we are going to have is the governor and the central bank continuously operationalizing Section 23.
To be like a lazy way out, isn't it?
And indeed, it leads to crisis of confidence in the economy. As the Financial Times of 6th June, January 2014, they're quoting Razia Khan.
Yeah.
Have I pronounced it properly?
Yes, Razia Khan.
Head of Research for Africa at Standard Chartered Bank, who says that restricting access to foreign exchange is not going to be great for confidence. The contest, if we continue, and look, I was talking to a friend of mine who is resident in the US, and his view, and I haven't done any serious evaluation of it, so I'm being very cautious, that the foreign remittances that they bring in, see, most of them targeted at estate development through their families, relations, and things. He thinks there's a risk there. They may not continue doing it that way because now you go to the bank, you can't withdraw more than $10,000, except even that's $10,000 for travel purposes. Now you go to the bank. They used to send these monies into the bank. Their families go to withdraw them for purposes of putting out these houses. Now the bank says you can't do that unless you are traveling. But even no. Wait. No. The rate at which they will get it at the bank, if they were to withdraw it for purposes of building their houses, they could go to the forest to change into cities. The forest rates are better than the rate at the bank. Now I am compelled to go to the bank, take the monies that have come, and at the bank rate fixed by the bank, when there's an alternative market, legal, that has a better rate, that is something that I don't think a free market actually endorses. And that's a control and command approach.
And Ayaga,
hold on,
I'll give you the opportunity.
So if even I get the dollars, I may go through the Togo border or go to the alternative market. And you are telling me that, oh, there's a cure for that. The cure for that is that the BNI and national security will be dealing with it. That's an unsustainable option.
Okay. Thank you very
That's
much.
the point I am making.
I got your reaction, and this ought to be done in 2 minutes, strictly. We'll move on.
You spoke for 7 minutes. How can I react?
No, he didn't.
2 minutes.
No, wait.
I mean, you see,
no, look,
you have constrained
understand
me.
This. Please understand this.
No.
You had already, you have already taken your time.
Now you guys are spending like 2 minutes.
Look.
Okay.
I want you to understand that you had already taken your time. This one is a rebuttal I'm giving you, so you are not entitled to the time you used. So please go on.
Okay. Don't put it on. You put it off, and then let's have
No,
the
go.
discussion.
I need
Now,
to do that.
Let's be clear exactly what rules we are enforcing. There are different sets of rules here. I haven't heard anybody say that those rules are not right. For instance, they are not legal. I mean, I haven't heard anybody say that they are not legal.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, there are rules about in what currency can you carry out transactions in this country. Nobody has disputed that.
Right.
And that you must carry out your transactions in Ghana City, so long as it relates to the Ghana economy.
So why did you
However, so the fact that happened
Why
in the
did you?
No, but you see,
There was a reason.
It
Please
happened
hold
in the
on.
past.
Allow
It's a
him.
fuzzy
Excuse
area
me.
that needs to be
It
addressed.
happened in the past. Today,
For a
we're-
reason.
today,
Doc, please allow him. Yeah.
we are experiencing the consequences. We are rolling back that and saying that no, this is bad. So let's have domestic transactions in our local currency. If for any reason you are running a business in which you have to purchase items abroad in foreign currency, you are given the power to open a local account, a local foreign account that enables you to carry out that foreign transaction. For any amount. It can be $10 billion, you can take that. However, if you as an individual, you open a local foreign account and you want to keep money there, it creates problems for all of us. So you should surrender that money when it comes in so that the banking system, the banking system can, you surrender that money, you surrender that money at the exchange rate. Is that okay? Within 7 days or something of that sort, so that the local system can use it. Now, if for any reason you want to travel abroad and therefore you need foreign currency, you are permitted to withdraw up to $10,000, because in almost all the countries that I have traveled to, they will only permit you to carry $10,000 into their economy. If you
declare more than that, you are allowed to go with it.
You have to explain why you are bringing more than $10,000.
But you are allowed. So don't just create the impression as if
cash. No, cash.
Yes,
But you must declare.
You declare.
You must declare.
More than $10,000.
Yes.
Most of the documents that I fill when entering a country,
You declare. If it's more, you must declare.
But if you carry more than 10,000,
you must declare.
You must
subject
declare
yourself to all sort of investigations.
Yeah, but you declare.
That's okay. So that is why, based on the best practice, we'll permit you to take $10,000 if you are going outside the country. Why? If you are building a house in this country, if you are building a house in this country and somebody is sending you money to build it and sending you the money in dollars, you are buying the sand in cities.
Okay.
Yes, but
You are buying the cement. You are buying the cement.
If I change it at the Forex Bureau, I'll get a better rate than the bank rate.
It's the same
That's
state.
the key
It's the
point.
same state that says that, look,
I'll go
we are
to black
creating-
market.
Listen, the same state that says that we are creating 2 tracks for you to be able to exchange Forex into local currency. We are creating the bank track.
Okay,
for those of you who get your remittances through a bank.
Thank you.
But we're also creating the Forex track and licensing the people.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
This is very important. Look, this is very important
thank
for
you
the
very much,
education of the
gentlemen.
public.
Spike in Ohio says that the decline of the cedi can squarely be attributed to the fact that we produce nothing as a nation. Virtually everything, including contumely, is imported. Ghana really needs a redeemer in these trying times. You may be careful in wanting to dispute that, because we have neighbors around who bring in tomatoes, the onion, all of them. So contumely may escape.
But then some of our contumely also crosses the border.
And Dr. Nimoy spoke about the fact that the history, economic history, is that we're still putting all our eggs in one basket, sort of. But we live in a time when we don't put the eggs in baskets. So let's also grow up. Right. Nyani says that, Samson, do we still have the 1 Ghana cedi as a legal tender? Where is it spent? It's been months since I saw and used one. Now, Prices of goods and services only increase in multiples of 5 and 10 pesos. Okay. You meant the 1 peso, coin. Sachet water is going up straight to 20 pesos because they claim that even the 5 pesos, they can't get enough to change. I understood them to say that it is going to 15 pesos from, it's going up by 50%. That is from 10 pesos to 15 pesos and not 20 pesos, please. Prince Adabraka says, Prince Abakrampa says, the introduction of new currency during President Kufuor's administration also contributes to the fall of the cedi. All right, so Ernest from Taifa says something, not until the government's economic team desists from operating with outmoded principles, the cedi will sink. Fred in Malaysia writes, I have been living in Malaysia since 2010, and my observation is that it is a well-run economy despite the fact that they have their own problems. In 2010, one Malaysian ringgit was exchanging for 0.45 Ghana cedis. Today, the 1 Malaysian ringgit is going for 0.70 Ghana cedis. The Malaysian economy, Ghana cedis. The Malaysian economy is therefore stable and cannot be likened to Ghana's economy, as Ayarga tried to do in his submissions. Sam Ni Edumwa says, in a country where providers of services always think they are doing their customers a favor, where everyone thinks politics is a means to an end, and where it takes government agencies over a year to prepare simple payment certificates to contractors who have pre-financed, that's what you wanted to say, pre-finance their projects for the government, do you think we will ever develop? We are a nation of jokers. Osei Wayo in New Jersey writes, importation of everything in Ghana, including communication advisor, Ben Chemalo, and expensive perfumes from Duncan Williams, that's serious, are some of the main causes of the depreciation of the Ghanaian cedi. All right. Sometimes it's good to put in a bit of humor. I'll read this very last one. Nana Ansa Abofo in London writes something. Greetings from the Queen. Thank you. What's Mahama Yarga talking about? What's Mahama Yarga talking about? They know exactly what the real cause is. If you throw out monies to cronies just like that, what do you expect? We can change our economic status, but if we continue and deliberately be financially indisciplined, like what they did in the last 5 years, we will still have the unprecedented problems that, they have failed big time. Thank you very much for all of these, your messages. We are taking a break here. Return to see if we can attempt to look at the way forward in the demolition exercises, and also in respect of the NPP and how they are broke, and how now they are going to plow every peso they have into a centralized election. Looks like 2016, they won't have money. How are they going to run that election? We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're here on Newsfile, your most authoritative news analysis show. Such a dose of economics, right? Now, let me share with you this message from Dr. Kweku Asare from the United States of America. He's regularly contributing to our show from where he is, and he's got background in some of these matters. He says that the single most important commodity traded by the banks is confidence. Depositors must be confident that their deposits will be available to them on a demand basis without incurring significant transaction cost. If the bank takes deposits in dollars, then dollars must be available to their customers on a demand basis. This is not just sound economics and sociology, it is also tried law, rooted in contractually settled expectations and property rights. Well, Mama Yaga was telling you about public interest. Now, public policy, so to speak, not interest, public policy. It is trade economics that controls work. It is trade economics that controls work only when they are unnecessary. So the bank's control will only lead to a cow lane. The solution to the dollar problem lies in the supply side, enhancing the value of exports, encouraging the inflow of dollars, and that's what I'm going to get them to do in a minute each, via interest rates, etc. On the demand side, government must channel dollar expenditures into activities that promote exports. Anyway, here is my CD prayer. The CD is falling like rain. The country is in pain. The president needs a brain. Techpest ministry is a drain. The bank's efforts are in vain. The churches can't explain. And the pastor ordains to contain our pain while we strain and abstain. Again and again, we are getting insane. I'll end it there. It's a long prayer. Thank you for your contributions. Now, we end on the issue of the depreciating CD and the measures that are being taken. In a minute each, I asked that question earlier, but it was a bit premature. Right. What do we expect?
Okay. Let me just assume that you're starting from here.
Right.
Just 4 quick points.
Right.
They're not too long. The first one is kind of tangential. You mentioned Ben Malo, and people keep referring to him as a foreign. I think we need to remind ourselves that he's a Ghanaian who just happened to have worked abroad.
I think that was just a joke.
No, someone had mentioned somewhere that he was a Kenyan or something like that.
Oh, I see.
Oh, yeah. And they wrote over. So he's a Ghanaian. He even speaks better Ghana than I do, I have to say. Yeah. So, and then secondly, the issue of the dollars. There are 2 types of dollar deposits in Ghana. One is what they call offshore, where the money comes from abroad. And the other one is onshore, where you walk in and deposit it. From my experience, when you have an onshore dollar deposit, you can go in there and take it out, at least until these regulations. For the offshore accounts, you take the dollar out, but you pay a fee. I think it's 2.5% or so. Or you negotiate with the bank depending on the size of the thing, and then they give it to you in cedis. So there's no penalty there. I personally preferred to just get my money from the bank, even though sometimes there's the differentials. But if you do the calculations, how much am I paying to the bank to get the dollars versus how much it would take me to go to Forex and so forth? Sometimes it's actually better to just get the money from the bank and so forth and so on. So we need to bear in mind the 2 types and the conventions that govern them. One of your texters actually sent something on Malaysia, and I thought it was relevant because in 1997, during the Asian financial crisis, Malaysia was the only country in Asia that did precisely what we are doing today.
Oh, I see.
In Ghana, yes. To the point where the IMF condemned them, you can impose controls. They did all sorts of things. Later on, the IMF itself... And
the question is whether we will not go to sleep after tomorrow.
That's the key point I made earlier, that the Bank of Ghana, it's up to you journalists also now to make sure that they're constantly reminded of their responsibilities. But the point is that Malaysia, once they did that, the IMF actually condemned them. Later on, the IMF wrote a paper. I have a copy here that I'll share with you later, where they said, well, on reflection, we think Malaysia did the right thing. That any country facing balance of payments crisis can do what Malaysia did, but you must have a plan and an exit strategy. It is not sustainable over the long haul. Okay. And I've since looked at Malaysia's situation. So there's a lesson there, and I'm glad that everyone is saying, well, this is not sustainable. No one is saying that it is sustainable. It is not. We can have police going from every country. It's just not sustainable.
Okay.
And then the last issue has to do with the fiscal. And since it's critical, I just want to share, because remember earlier at the beginning, I kept referring to structural nature of our problem. Why do these problems keep recurring irrespective of which government is in power? It is critical. Now, let me just read a portion of the Bank of Ghana's 2008 annual report. It says, this is paragraph 3.7, fiscal developments. The fiscal policy thrust for 2008 was to reverse the 2007 fiscal slippages. Consequently, new fiscal measures such as communications sales tax, which I happen to have supported, a lone voice at the time, and special tax and special tax audits were introduced to boost revenue mobilization. Notwithstanding these, the global economic challenges of 2008 weighed heavily on government finances and the fiscal deficit, including divestiture, turned out much larger than anticipated.
Okay.
Equivalent to 11.5% of GDP compared to 4.7%. And then lastly, I'm jumping to another
I thought
paragraph.
you said that was the last
Yeah,
one.
it says the huge public sector personal emoluments bill. See, this is 2017,
Right.
and it's hunting us again. The single highest item of expenditure continued to exert pressure on government finances, registering growth rates of 27.4, and it goes on. So again, the problems are structural, they're fundamental, they keep recurring, irrespective of which party is in power. We need to pull our resources together to deal with them once and for all.
Thank you very much. And I know that Mama Yaga is watching my stopwatch. I'm sorry, I'll be biased and exercise. I'm going to exercise my judgment. You're not going to get the same time. You got 4 minutes, but you don't get the same time. I said a minute
accountability
each.
of public officers. You don't want to be accountable here.
No, don't worry.
I think
yes.
we've talked about the issues and what needs to be done. My first advice, some of these indicators are easy to predict. The government should not wait till we come crashing before they deal with it. And I've noticed that it is not being done.
The next time we ever got there, heads must roll, right? He's saying that we the journalists should play our role and watch.
I told you a month ago, we put out the indicators and says, right now, I'm going on record. This budget is out of the window. We are expecting the government to come back with measures to deal with the situation because the exchange rate assumption is out. Let's not wait till there's a crisis before we start acting. Some of these things are predictable. Those that we don't have control over, you can't do anything about it. We know that oil is not going to do well this year. We know that cocoa, surprisingly, in terms of output, is not going to do well. We know that the gold market has been fluctuating. So we should factor this in our planning for the next 9 months.
We are likely to, put our hands into the stabilization fund.
$250 million maximum. $250 million maximum.
All right.
And so I think that I expect the government to come back with something different from what is in the budget.
Okay.
If not, we'll be in a crisis.
Thank you very much. Sometime brevity.
Well, I think that there's no disagreement on the fact that the economy is growing consistently. There's no disagreement that because of this growth, we are transitioning into a middle-income economy. And there's also no disagreement that this is generating structural problems and the need to make structural shifts. The need to realign institutions and systems. And this costs money, this costs investment, this costs energy. We're doing all that. On this specific issue of the depreciation in the city, we are very confident that these measures will deal with the issues temporarily, but we also agree that fundamentally we need to deal with the issue of the demand for foreign currency by addressing the productive capacities of your own economy.
Thank you very much. And government will show.
You owe me 1 minute. I use only 1 minute.
Government will show the way. We show the way by also ensuring that it is the first to respect this law. We have contracts that
the finance minister announced that he's carrying out audits. Right. Audits of all government contracts that are in foreign currency. We'll find out which ones are really violating the rules and which ones are absolutely necessary. So he's carrying out an audit at the Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Abdul Malik.
We would be back here in the next 3 months, and I suspect 9 months subsequent to the 3 months. And we would come and discuss this same problem. Mark my words. I'm cynical.
Prayers have been said for these people.
No, I'm very cynical.
To be able to,
we may be growing, but are we developing? It's talking about growth without development.
What development?
Well, no, you can have growth without necessarily having development. So to be honest with you, I remain very cynical because of the lack of discipline in how governments handle their finances. I'm clear in my mind. It's been too consistent for me not to remain cynical. I hope for the best.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much, Abdul Malik Bako Jr. You're still here on Newsfile. This is your most authoritative news analysis show. Star Assurance, that's your award-winning insurance company, is once again reminding you that it is dedicated to making sure that its promise to you is unbroken, and that you can enjoy the best policy that they have to offer. They have branches all over Ghana, and they are focused on building partnerships that last. So talk to Star Assurance on 0302-240-632 or visit them at starassurance.com. Star Assurance, that's your CIMG Insurance Company of the year 2012, and they are your solid partner. Also, Erata Motors, that's the place to go for your brand new or slightly used vehicle in their very best of shapes, Mercedes-Benz, Toyota Infiniti, whatever. Go to Erata Motors at Lagos Avenue opposite Body Talk near GT Bank, East Legon, or call 0244-445-268 or 0277-486-800. Erata Motors, that's where you get the best vehicle deals for the best prices. May I remind you also that on the 14th of February, MTN is taking on a very good, noble project, calling on all of you to come donate blood to support the Kolebu Blood Bank. You can save a life. Here in Accra, MTN Rich Towers office, Takoradi Market Circle, Kumasi Forecourt of Independence Hall, and Edum. Also, you can get to Tamale Teaching Hospital. That's the footbridge at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. This is brought to you by the MTN Ghana Foundation, and they want all of you to help to do a great exercise to save a life. And they are grateful to Nestle Milo, EcoBank, and their media partners. MTN, that's everywhere you go. And Bank of Africa is also proudly associated with the show. They are your solid partner as well. They're very close to you, like you want to be close to your family. Now, let's talk about a bit. We have very limited time, but let's talk about the demolition exercises that have gone on so far. Now, as far as we know, the demolition exercises are not only limited to Tema, where we have over 500 houses flattened and over 2,000 residents rendered homeless. Well, the August House, Parliament, has taken note of that situation and is asking for investigations into it. My question really is, and I'll start with you, Dr. Akutose, my question really is, to what end? Investigations to bring back their homes or what?
Well, I thank you very much. This is an issue that, as you said, I was just reading an article that some demolition has gone on in Tanokrum in Takoradi.
Right.
And this
some will go on at Frafraha. The CSIR is also seeking to demolish quite a good number of
all this points to
houses.
An indication of how our systems are not working. I mean, how the people could have been allowed to build, getting electricity, utilities, all in official circles, and then end up with this type of situation. We must begin to look at our systems. I pray that here we should not be looking for a guilty party. We are talking about human beings. We should be finding a compromise. See, I was surprised when I heard that TDC did not go and get a court order for demolition. They just won a case at the High Court and they said, I'm surprised. But I think that the harm has been done. Now the government is trying to find money only so much to even keep them in the same places on a temporary basis. I think Parliament has decided to appoint a committee to look into it. My wish is that the committee will find some compromise such that no one is unduly hurt, either the people whose houses have been demolished or TDC. I think a compromise must be found. And this is where Parliament can be innovative, or government can be innovative. That's why we have a contingency fund. This is a situation that now that we've created a contingency fund, we ought to find a way to solve part of the problem, even if on a limited basis. And I tell you, I know of 4 of my colleagues whose houses have been demolished.
You don't think the state institution or government should be careful that they are not slapped with causing financial loss, especially when you have endorsed a process?
I think,
and then after that, you're using our money again.
I think all those processes will come
from
the parliamentary investigation. It's just been announced. It's going to start. If I were on the committee...
But at least you have one position already, that because they didn't get a court order, they were wrong in the first place. So you have pronounced
that's my
judgment.
untutored legal position. So it's a common sense. I thought that at least an institution like TDC must have a legal person and so forth and so on. But I think that the other side is that the two parties themselves cannot have a solution. I think this is where state intervention becomes important.
Right.
And I want to advise my colleague, Honorable Ayarga, that this is a situation where we can use money from the contingency fund to abate the problem a bit.
Dr. Nima Thompson, a very respected landlord lawyer in this country, senior lawyer, that Kwame Jan, says, look, when we are buying lands as if we're in the market to buy tomatoes, what else can we expect?
Well, my colleague here, Dr. Akotose, used the term systems. I probably would use a broader term, institutions. And I agree with everything he said, except the part where he said we shouldn't look for guilty party. We really should, because there are questions to be asked. These TDC people, where were they when the first foundation, forget about the building, the first foundation was laid, and then the building was completed, and then the second, and then the third.
They were taken to court, and they got an injunction which forbade both parties from continuing to act, and they respected it, but the other parties did not respect it.
The first building I'm talking, because those could have been stopped. You see, we have institutional dysfunction that is reflecting or manifesting itself in that. But look at other areas also, the Galamsey issue. It's a reflection of dysfunctional institutions. 2004, I actually did a lot of research in the Galamsey areas. We shared the report and so forth. Back then, it was only Ghanaians who were doing it.
Can I correct that impression? I didn't mean to say don't look for guilt. What I'm saying is that let's find a solution.
Okay.
And in the process, there may be parties that are guilty. Okay. There must be a solution to the problem.
Certainly.
Yes.
That's all I'm
okay,
asking.
good. But we need to also broaden our view then to look at broader institutional reforms. Yes. Because it's not just there. I've mentioned Galamsey as a reflection of institutional failure. And we are seeing the consequences then, where there's also some demolition. People invest huge amounts of money in equipment and so forth. We go and destroy them. Okadas are happening now. It's against the law. But you see the police riding Okadas with their AK-47s hanging on their shoulders. Nobody seems to care. The demolition, unfortunately, more of it is going to occur if you look around you.
Yes.
I just drove to Jowlu the other day. The amount of encroachment on railway lines, and we know that the government plans to revive the railway sector. So we can expect major demolition along that line alone, to say nothing of what is happening in other parts of Accra and the rest of the country. I think somehow or the other, these officials who connive with these builders must be brought to book.
Right.
I mean, in tongue-in-cheek, I would say the first house to be demolished at TDC will be the house of the officials who permitted this. So that they'll learn a lesson. Next time when they start closing their eyes to these constructions, they'll think that, wait a second, when the time comes for demolition, my house will be the first to be demolished. But that is not, that's just a tongue-in-cheek prescription. But we need to refine our institutions. Lawlessness, there's not a single country out there that's developed on the basis of lawlessness. And you cannot pass laws for development. You don't enforce those laws, and then you expect to develop. It will never happen. Right. And those are problems that we need to address.
Interesting there. Abdul Malik, like as we speak, we are also being told that the CSIR is to demolish over 200 houses. 2,000, yes. Yeah. Over 2,000 houses in areas where that have been encroached upon. Frafraha, New Legon, New Ashie, and Commando residents. You know, what's going on?
I'm tired. Fatigue. Yes. I'm suffering from serious fatigue relative to this matter. How many times have we discussed this issue? How many years now? Consistently. And virtually, I'm at the risk of being repetitive. I'm not sure I can say anything new on this matter. Only last week, we dealt with the TDC one. And before then, we even recollected what had happened previously. In many instances, something basically wrong with our country and town
the
planning
parliamentary
structure.
committee that will investigate this, and they have a week or 2 weeks, a month to submit their report, will it not give us pointers as to guide us in the future?
Look, go and check the Hansard. You see there have been debates and discussions over demolitions over the years. It's in the Hansard. What was the value of those discussions? It was supposed to be consolidated and be a basis for some re-engineering in terms of legislation and other things to guide country and town development. But what happened? Okay? And I'm even a bit confused here. There's this peacefmonline.com report, but it's sourced to Daily Graphic. And it said the Parliamentary Select Committee on Works and Housing has said that the Tema Development Corporation did nothing untoward in the demolition of houses at Ajay Koju, a suburb of Tema. Then they quote the vice chairman. Said the vice chairman of the committee, Mr. Francis Edu Blay Kofi, told the Daily Graphic that a meeting with the TDC had enabled the members to ascertain the full facts and added that the corporation had provided documentary proof of ownership of the land in question. This is an attribution, not a quote. And comes back to the point about, they had a court order, they won a court judgment in 2003, 2008. We don't hear about whether there was a court order for the specific demolition.
This is that also being as that even if there was a court order, the court certainly would have given specific rules as to how to go about it in a very human manner.
Yes.
But in the absence of that, these are human beings, the soldiers and the police that went there to supervise this thing, also ought to have exercised some...
Yes, but yes, already...
Can I just comment on that part of the parliamentary subcommittee?
Yeah.
The way Parliament works, when the business is done before you, you have no business making an opinion on behalf of Parliament.
All right.
Interesting.
So the vice chairman could not have been speaking. They could have met with them, but kept quiet.
You were angry about that.
Yes.
You spoke about that in the House.
Okay.
Now the Speaker has directed, and members of the Constitutional and Legal Committee will be part of it. So that it's proper before us. That statement shouldn't have happened.
So there's so much confusion there, but the point really is, bottom line, I think it's about time we apply sanctions. I'm going along with that point. The chiefs who engage in this double sales, the officials of the Land Commission and the rest.
Those are there clearly to punish for
so
those
let's
acts.
enforce. Maybe if we did some enforcement, it may serve as a deterrent for future, corporates.
Right.
Across the board. Even the chiefs must be identified and dealt with.
Well, I think sometimes it's important that, when we're discussing these issues, to be as accurate as possible in the analysis. Otherwise, sometimes we demonize state institutions unfairly. Some wrongdoing has taken place. Even if you pull down one house, there's a wrongdoing. Why did you even allow the house to spring up there?
Especially a house that's been built by someone's life savings.
Yes. Why did you allow the house to spring up there, and then now you are demolishing it? That's a wrongdoing.
You have 4 of your colleagues.
But if you take the TDC,
and those have also been demolished.
Yeah.
If you take the TDC issue, what they say is that this is their land, and you know how TDC functions. It functions along the line of a corporation that acquires land and then plants it and then develops it as a planned city. But that is why you see that Tema is one of the most well-planned cities in the country because of the role of TDC in this regard. This is land they acquired long ago. As far back as I hear 2004, they noticed people were encroaching. They tried to stop them from encroaching. So this is our land, don't move into it. Then the encroachers quickly ran to court. Then the court gave a ruling in favor of TDC that yes, this is TDC land, so don't encroach. Then they appealed against the decision of the High Court and went to the Court of Appeal. So by 2008, the Court of Appeal gave a ruling that said, look, this is TDC land. So why are you wasting their time taking them to court when you know you are encroaching on land that doesn't belong to you? TDC, in spite of the fact that they had won the case, did a survey to find out how many people were on the land, and found out that over, about 1,000 people were on the land.
They tried to regularize for.
So they tried to regularize 900, according to them. Yes,
I see.
They tried to regularize the presence of 900 of them. Then, for some people, where they were located was according to their plan, just inappropriate. For instance, those who were located on places that are supposed to be roads, places that are supposed to be places where you provide public infrastructure, and etc. And according to them, those numbers came up to over 57 or something, which they felt, for these ones, they must demolish. Otherwise, they will compromise the plan.
Were coming up, they didn't see them.
Excuse me. They were sent to court. They were sent.
And they didn't cite the people for contempt.
I'm not justifying the decision to pull down. I'm just saying that when we're discussing these issues,
you are rationalizing.
No, I'm not rationalizing. Let's know the facts. Is that okay? So that we know the extent to
but we
which
are all aware of these facts. No. We are all aware.
Why? He mentioned that 500 houses were pulled down. Why? In your intro, you said 500 houses were pulled down. And I'm just saying that, no, they're not 500 houses. According to them, about 57 houses. And that those were houses that were at locations where they couldn't regularize.
Did you see them when they were coming up?
And I made that point, that once you allow a building to rise to a certain point and you pull down, it is a problem for all of us because you create a social problem for everybody.
Yes.
And we empathize with those who have suffered as a result. But I'm saying that let's know the facts so that we know the extent.
But we are all aware of the facts. We address the facts.
No. From the conversations, I didn't hear these facts. So I'm just stating the facts. The facts as I understand them. Is that okay? If you discuss them thoroughly, I'm surprised but I'm surprised that in his mention of what happened, he mentioned 500 houses. Anybody listening that 500 houses were pulled down would just think that these were a heartless bunch of people, which is not the facts. So that is all that I'm saying. Now, I think that as a country, we should condemn these things. But at the same time also, we must not, in doing that, encourage a practice where people know that a particular location is state land and encroach, believing that when finally the state decides to take action, there will be a public outcry against the state.
That is how we should rather look at it.
Yes, I have said that way of looking at it is right.
That inertia.
And I support it. No, I support that.
But that inertia is the problem.
Yes, I support that. But no. I'm not sure about more demolitions. Is that okay? No, I'm not talking about more demolitions.
In Parliament, the question was also raised about the
why allow Kokubaku to prevent me from making my point
about the conflicting roles by the TDC and the TMA.
Yes.
So that these people are showing you evidences of regular processes by the TMA.
Yes. So there is a problem there because some institutions have staff there who, when they manage lands, by the time you realize, they parcel the lands and give out to people. So when people are dealing with them, they think they are dealing with the institution. It is when they go to Lands Commission, no, you can't register this because on the plan, this is this organization's land. But then they proceed to build because, but this other person has built, this other person has also built. So they build hoping that one day the institution will realize that this land can no longer be used for the purpose that they acquired the land. Right. And then they will regularize their title, just as they have regularized the title for 900 people who are occupying the land. It has become a common practice.
Right.
So let us look at this thing as a systems problem, institutional failures, and we're working on them. The land administration reform program is ongoing. Is that okay?
It's been ongoing for a very long time.
Yes. No. But in the land issues, but the other complication,
Phase 2 has been going on for a while.
The other complication in relation to this country is the issue of land ownership.
Right.
The issue of land ownership. Unless we deal with that issue,
thank you.
Fundamentally, that is where the problem is coming
Thank you very much. Ganiu in Savligu sends it this message. He says, if TDC could have the opportunity to amass security to the demolition site, what disabled them from doing same when the people were still clearing the land, or is it that they were no longer in Ghana? Let's begin appreciating the spirit behind laws and not as they are in black and white. Thank you very much indeed. Obviously we can't deal with the next issue, but you are here, Dr. Antonio Couture, say it became very apparent that your party could not flout your constitutional injunction to have, a decentralized conference. Now, we're told that you're going to have a centralized conference, and it will be in honor of Aliyu Mama, so you are locating it at Tamale.
The decision was not that it has to be. The decision was to hold it in Tamale.
Right.
And that some people made a comment that it will be, it can honor him.
Okay,
the decision
if it is done in Tamale. Okay, so you the guys in Parliament, you are the ones saying there's enough money. You already have some money. Your estimates show that you can organize that conference with 600,000.
I think we are getting it all wrong. Let me tell you what happened. One of our colleagues, when the National Executive Committee took a decision wrote in his own personal capacity that he's against this decision.
Right.
The next highest body is the National Council, apart from the National Delegates Conference. So we petitioned that, look, let us go and discuss this matter, because we had heard that some people were thinking about going to court. Now, because we were going to go there, it was important that somebody did some estimates, preliminary, as to what they think the cost may be. That is the document that you made a reference to. It is not what is going to be used. It was just saying, look, you've called a 1.2 million figure. We think that it could be less, so let's discuss it. Thankfully, when we met the meeting at the National Council, most people, there was a general consensus that constitutionally it would not be wise. Most people believe that because we've changed our structure, we should change the constitution to take care of decentralization.
So the estimates that were given by Jacob Echebelamte and Sir John may not be wrong, which were
not at all, because
now
were
1 million and more.
Now a committee. The estimate was based on what happened the previous time.
Right.
Now a committee has been formed with broad representation to help plan the process for Tamale on April the 12th.
Right.
I think it's going to be done.
Kweku, you last week were very strong also against the attempt to sort of sidestep the Constitution. So this is good, right?
Yes, except that I didn't root my disagreement within the Constitution. I've searched the MPP Constitution. I can't find any specific constitutional provision that insists that they should hold the meeting.
But there are practical difficulties.
It's interpretation by implication.
It's implied.
Yeah. So that's it, by implication.
Approve a resolution.
No, I agree. That's why I say it's by implication, interpretation by implication. Because you see, if you were to go to court to litigate on that as a constitutional issue, I don't see how you could win. You could not win on strict constitutional terms, because it's not stated black and white as such. So that's not how. But I thought it was a bad idea. Even if it was a good idea, its time had not come. That's the way I saw it, and it was even self-defeating, and it didn't help the credibility, the image of the party. So the timing was very crucial. It was bad timing.
Right.
That's the way I saw it.
Okay. Mama Yaga.
Actually, I have not been following developments in the MPP.
But you'll be excited.
In the MPP that closely. I have not been folling developments in the MPP that closely.
Too busy arresting the child of the city.
I think that each political party is looking at ways of organizing better, more efficiently. I think that all of us as political parties must be working towards the people owning the parties. And we must begin to nurture a culture of people paying party dues and informing the values of the party and the agenda of the party.
Okay.
So that we don't surrender political parties to big moneyed interest, because when we do that, ultimately it reflects when you are in government.
Thank you very much. Dr. Thompson, are you surprised that they can't raise money? A big party like the NPP, and they are complaining. Oh, your secretary, your chairman say you are broke.
I think they were speaking in their personal capacities, not because of
I put that finance committee. Thompson, I'm sure he's not interested in this discussion.
He's my colleague in arms, and he's answered for me.
All right, thank you very much, gentlemen. And you have been watching and listening to Newsfile. My guests have been Dr. Nimoy Thompson, an economist, Dr. Anthony Akoto, a member of parliament, and also chairs the NPP's finance committee, or is it economics committee? Select committee. All right. Bahama Yarga is the information and media relations minister, and Dr. Kweku Bako Junior.
We have begun the campaign.
By the powers, I don't know where the powers are coming from, but by the powers vested in me, at least I have presidential powers backing me here, or ministerial powers.
God doesn't hear this.
Abdul Malik Kweku Bako Junior. And there is Nana in England. He says that, as usual, I'm enjoying Newsfile. I fully support an honorary doctorate for Kweku. Could my University of Ghana, please consider this one a SAP? Greetings to your panel, and from Sunny and Cold. Thank you very much for doing the listening and for watching. My outfits, as always, is provided by Latida. All you need to do is simply call them and they would come take a good measurement of you and surprise you. They'll make you look smart and sharp. The contact number is 026 56 509 18 or 020 433 6444. Dr. Antonio Kotosa is trying to write. I'll give you the number later. And then the show is produced by, the executive producer of the show is Sedem Ofori. He's been assisted by Samuel Odame, Kofi Odame, Emmanuel Ante, Yaya Abubakar. Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon. The news is up next. I am Samson Ladi Anyanini. The show is repeated on this same platform on TV at 9:30 p.m. Good afternoon.